On a cold, snowy, windy night, Jonathan was driving back home to his state after visiting his girlfriend Kate. As he sped down the road, numerous memories and thoughts ran through his mind as he remembered the old days of their relationship. He and Kate had been dating for 3 years. They were very close, in love, and planning a future together. For the last 1 year, Jonathan and Kate had been in a living relationship, and Jonathan had been supporting her as Kate tried for her dream job in the fashion industry. The interview is today, John. I'm feeling so nervous. Don't worry, everything will be fine. And finally, Kate recently got her big break at the IIB fashion company. Jonathan, I still can't believe it. I got the job. You've been trying for this break for so long. We have to celebrate. Exhausted, Jonathan was having difficulty keeping his eyes open as he stared at the dark road ahead of him, only being able to see as much as his car headlights allowed. He hadn't slept in the last 48 hours and had been driving for a long time. It was past 1 a.m. when Jonathan suddenly flinched to his wheels skid on the snowy, slippery road. He had dozed off. But in the middle of nowhere, Jonathan didn't have much choice. Letting out a deep breath, he stared into the snow. It wasn't safe to go on like this. In this weather, he would end up having an accident. But in the middle of nowhere, Jonathan didn't have much choice. He remembered seeing a small motel on his way here. Perhaps if he could drive a bit longer, he could stay there for the night. So Jonathan began driving slowly again. When he suddenly noticed a woman in the distance. What was she doing out here in the middle of this highway? Perhaps her car broke down. As Jonathan neared her, he saw the woman turn around. She was very beautiful. She smiled, looking directly into his eyes. But Jonathan turned his gaze onto the road and drove on without stopping to inquire or help her. Women, you can't trust any one of them. There's nothing but deceit behind that smile. Jonathan was happy for Kate, and he always tried to support her in every way possible. But after getting the job, Kate became overwhelmed with her work. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I know it was our date night, but I had so much work. It's alright. You're still new to the job. It'll take some time to adjust. But the days turned to weeks and Kate was often late coming home. And she was always so tired. In fact, she didn't even have time on the weekends like before. Rather, she had different plans with her boss or her colleagues. Ever since you joined this job, it's like you have no time for me. Try to understand, John. I'm in fashion. It's a creative industry. Ideas can come anytime, even on the weekends. And when ideas come, you have to work on it. But now and then, Kate tried to make up for it. Finally, you're home. Surprise. Come on, dinner's getting cold. I made your favorite. The days were going by one way or the other, and Jonathan and Kate were trying to make it work. But in all this, Kate had to leave on a business trip out of state for 3 whole weeks. And wanting to surprise her, a week into being away, Jonathan drove a whole 9 hours in this stormy, snowy weather just to meet her. I'm here to visit Kate Winslow. I'm Jonathan Reeves. She's in room 206. Brushing back his hair and fixing up the flowers, Jonathan smiled as he knocked on her door. And as expected, when Kate opened up, she froze in shock seeing him. "John?" Jonathan walked in with the flowers. "Surprise? You thought only you would surprise me?" But that's when Jonathan fell silent seeing her boss in her bed. "John, let me explain. So this is what you've been busy with?" Shattered and upset, Jonathan dropped the flowers and left without another word. Now, every time Jonathan thought of all those good moments he spent with Kate, he felt so betrayed. He had always supported her and trusted her, and she misused his trust. How could she live with him maintaining that false act all the time? Deceit behind what he once thought a beautiful smile. And after what Jonathan experienced, he would never be able to trust another woman again. A while into driving, Jonathan noticed another person walking down the highway road. A bit surprised, he stared closely to recognize it was the same woman. Jonathan was a bit unnerved when she turned to smile at him again. How could she make it here so quickly, and in the snow? She wasn't even wearing a jacket. Was it really her, or was he seeing things in his drowsiness? Not understanding what just happened, Jonathan continued driving, but he was now a bit frightened. "20 minutes down the secluded roads, Jonathan reached the Sunset Inn. It seemed practically empty. There was not a single car in the parking lot besides Jonathan's, but he could see the light in the office room on the first floor. So Jonathan locked up, shivering as he headed inside. As he walked in covered in snow, the manager looked at him surprised. "Did you just drive in from Route 95? "Yes." "No one travels down that route, especially at night. It's a bad road." "Why?" "People have seen strange things." Jonathan was a bit surprised thinking of the woman, but extremely exhausted, he didn't have the patience to talk. "Are there any rooms available?" "Yes, $50 per night," the manager said, taking down a key. As Jonathan wrote his name into the register and made the payment, he asked, "Are there any arrangements for food?" "Sorry, the diner is closed and there aren't any stores around here. You'll have to drive about 1 hour away to the nearest market." "All right, thank you." Letting out a sigh, Jonathan took the keys to his room on the second floor and went upstairs. As he walked down the balcony, 2 rooms down from his, he noticed a woman walking with her baby. It was so late at night, and she was out here in the cold. The woman turned and waved at him politely, so Jonathan too nodded his head before he went inside. Dropping his jacket onto the table, he freshened up, took a seat near the window, looking out into the snow. The weather was cold, but it was beautiful outside. He closed his eyes, trying to clear out his thoughts, and soon dozed off. But sometime later, Jonathan woke up hearing the scream of a woman and the cry of a baby outside. He jumped up, startled to see the same woman he had seen walking on the highway, standing right outside the window, her hands up onto the glass as she stared into his eyes. Jonathan got up, horrified, seeing her smile, her lips stretch across her face as if they had been cut out. Suddenly, the woman's fingers started to grow long and sharp as she clenched onto the glass. Jonathan stepped back, holding his ears to that shrill, piercing sound of the woman scratching her nails along the window. As the glass began to crack, he fell back onto the bed. As the window shattered and the woman climbed in, approaching him. What was happening? Was this a dream? What was she? Hearing the scream, the sound of the baby crying, followed by the shattering noise from upstairs, the manager rushed out to see the matter. He ran upstairs and immediately barged into the room. But as soon as he did, he was frightened to see the vicious woman standing tall, turn to gaze at him. She instantly charged at the manager and sliced his throat with her bare hands. In a panic, Jonathan ran out the door, stopping to see the baby sitting in front of the lifeless body of his mother, crying profusely. Jonathan was about to pass by his room to take the child, but before he could, the vicious woman stepped out in front of him. Jonathan didn't have a choice but to jump over the balcony from the second floor, breaking his fall onto the snow-covered concrete below. He injured and bruised himself, but he didn't stop and ran to his car. But just as he was getting in, he turned to look at the woman standing on the balcony, staring at him as she held the crying baby in her arms, stroking around his throat with her pointed, long fingers. Frightened to his core, Jonathan didn't know what was that thing, but he knew he needed to bring back help. He pressed on the gas, driving as fast as he could down the slippery roads, until he stopped, seeing a police car outside a gas station. Jonathan rushed out to approach them. "Officers, I was staying at the Sunset Inn. There's a crazy woman there. I don't know if she's a woman at all. She took the life of the manager and another woman who was there, and she took her child. I tried to rescue the baby, but I couldn't. You have to come with me." "Sunset Inn? That can't be possible." "No, you have to believe me, please." Seeing Jonathan's condition, the officers passed each other a glance before they followed Jonathan back to the Sunset Inn. However, this time, as the cars parked in front of the inn, Jonathan stepped out, confused to see everything silent. The lights all turned off, the inn locked up. There was no sign of anyone ever being here. "This is what we were thinking. This inn has been closed for years now. But they were here. Maybe you had a rough night." "No, I saw them with my own eyes. I don't understand. How could this be?" Years ago, a man named Bill Atkins had sold his wife's family-inherited house and bought this inn. He opened up a small diner along with it, and hired a bartender to work for him and offered her a room to live as well. But it was over time that he and the young woman got into a relationship and eventually had a child. Though they kept it a secret, it was one day the man's wife discovered his secret affair. And on a dark, cold, snowy night, she had come to the inn and broke into the woman's room, taking her life and the life of their child. And lastly, her husband, before she fled into the forest and went missing. No one could find her at the time, but to this day, people have claimed bizarre things, seeing her spirit walking along the highway route, and sometimes witnessing the cruel night in this very inn. Standing outside the Sunset Inn in the stillness of the night as the snow poured heavily, Jonathan stared at the balcony where he had last seen the woman. What did I see? Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting. We will meet again. Nolan woke up startled in bed after another nightmare. The thunder rumbled in the skies. It was pouring rain outside. Nolan suddenly heard a knock on his door. Who was here at this time? He hurried out, surprised to see Mrs. Bennet, the landlady. She looked concerned. Drops of tears moistened her face. Mrs. Bennet, is everything all right? My son passed away. The power has gone out, and I can't call an ambulance. I don't know what to do. I'm feeling scared. After quitting his job at the BIIPD and cutting all ties with his family in Seattle, Nolan Anderson had moved to the small town of Winthrop. With the little savings he had, he rented this room in the Bennett's house as a paying guest and decided to live a life of isolation. While he lived in the single room upstairs, Mrs. Bennet and her son lived downstairs. Her son Jason was in his 30s. However, he suffered from a health condition and thus lived in his mother's care. But alas, with his demise, Mrs. Bennet was left all alone. Following her down the dark staircase, he entered her apartment. She had opened the windows and set out a few candles to allow some light. Mrs. Bennet escorted him to Jason's room. He's here. Nolan looked inside to see the young man's cadaver covered in a white cloth. I'm sorry for your loss. He went down the hall and took a look at the electrical panel, but it seemed the power on the telephone line was out for good. Mrs. Bennet, we'll have to bring someone in to get the electricity fixed, but in this weather it won't be possible to go out. Try to get some rest, and don't worry, I'll stay here for the night. Once it's morning, I'll see what I can do. All right. As Mrs. Bennet went off to her room, Nolan walked to the living room, listening to the droplets of rain heavy on the roof. He sat down on an armchair by the window, feeling the moist breeze. Nolan turned around a bit disturbed, hearing Jason's door creak, but he knew it was probably just the wind. Letting out a deep breath, he leaned back, picking up a book from the table beside him. Mrs. Bennet was quite an elderly woman, and she had a rather collection of old books. Trying to pass the time, Nolan flipped through the pages, but before he knew it, his eyes began to shut on him. Come on, Lisa, it's time to cut the cake. Happy birthday to Lisa! Nolan woke up, his hands trembling, his heart racing. Another nightmare. Wiping the drops of sweat off his forehead, Nolan got up and went to the kitchen to get himself a glass of water. As he took out a glass from the cabinet, he heard footsteps behind him. Is everything all right? Nolan turned to see it was Mrs. Bennet. Yes, Mrs. Bennet. I fell asleep for a while, and then I had a nightmare. It's fine. Nightmares, they haunt those people who know the kind of person they're supposed to be, but they're not. It's a tormenting feeling, But one can overcome it. The nightmares stop when one becomes what they're supposed to be. It's not like that, Mrs. Bennet. I have no regrets in my life. Mrs. Bennet let out a sigh and nodded as she turned around and left. Nolan returned to the living room and sat down. He picked up the book again, when suddenly the candle beside him went out as a cool breeze passed through the room. In the darkness, Nolan put down the book and sat there watching the droplets of rain fall outside. Within a while, he started to feel drowsy, but was awoken by a sound. Startled by a familiar voice, he turned his head to see someone walk out of Jason's room. You? It can't be. Another rainy night, huh? He said, walking around to him. How can you be here? He smirked, staring directly at Nolan. If you have no regrets, why are you living your life like this? Out here, away from everyone. Why are you punishing yourself? What regrets? Perhaps the fact that you failed to save that girl? Or the fact that you took the life of your own brother? About a year ago, when Nolan was working for the BIIPD, they were trying to capture a serial killer who had been hunting down young women in the neighborhood. As Nolan was investigating the case, he had arranged a list of suspects. However, among the suspects, one turned out to be his own brother, Colton. At the time, Nolan ignored the suspicion on his brother and focused on the other suspects. But as the investigation progressed and the clues and details became clear, Nolan could no longer keep himself in denial. Every piece of evidence and information led to the fact that the criminal could have been none other than his own brother. What are you doing, Nolan? Are you going to kill your own brother for this damsel? Please, Colton, don't do this. Why? You're in love with her now? Then here goes your love. Seeing no way out, Colton pushed the innocent woman over. But it was at the very moment that Nolan didn't hesitate either and shot Colton. We'll meet again, brother. Admit what you've done. Admit you did wrong. You took the life of your own brother. Nolan's heart raced as he looked at Colton. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, but what he said was true. He had taken his life. All of a sudden, Nolan heard another voice, but there was no one else around him. It's not your brother. He's not what you think he is. Jason? After Eva Bennett's husband passed away, she raised their only child, Jason, alone. Eva was a very possessive mother. She never married again and brought her son up strictly. However, years later, when Jason got married to a young woman named Elizabeth and moved out of the house, Eva couldn't accept this. All of a sudden, her relationship with Jason became distant. So Eva took it upon herself to visit their home, sometimes even staying over. Elizabeth, however, didn't like her visits. She felt Eva was always interfering in their matters, especially when it came to the brought-up of their daughter, Lisa. Lisa, who gave you this necklace? Granny made it for me. She took me outside today. Do You didn't even ask me before you took Eva out. What is there to ask you? This isn't your house, and that isn't your child. It's my child. When you're here, you will do things my way, or you can leave right now. How dare you ask me to leave my son's house? Elizabeth often misbehaved with Eva, and they ended up clashing. Jason, your wife doesn't want me here. Do I have no right to visit my son? Every time I come, she mistreats me. She insults me. Mother, things are getting out of hand. Perhaps it's better if we keep distance from each other. Eva left Jason's house that day, but she didn't forget what she experienced there. She was enraged how her son hadn't said anything in his support. Suddenly, she regretted having given up everything in her life for the son of hers. I sacrificed everything for him, and this is how he's treating me? Burning in rage, it was one day that Eva planned to bring Jason back home and gave him a call. Jason, my dear son, I don't know how much longer I'll make it. I'm dying. I just want to see you a last time. Hearing his mother's condition, Jason immediately returned to the house. You don't know how happy I am to see you. Have you called the doctors? I don't need the doctors. I just want you to be by my side till I depart in peace. That night, when Jason fell asleep in the house, Eva went to his room. She had always had a fascination of collecting old books, and it was one book in particular that she knew she would find her answers in. In it was a ritual through which she could summon a demon from the underworld that would make her son be the son she wanted him to be. While Jason slept, Eva performed the ritual and summoned the demon to descend and possess her son so she could keep him with her forever. However, it was in the middle of the ritual that Jason woke up, shocked by what he saw. What are you doing? I'm only doing this for your better, my son. You lied to me and brought me here. This is why. This is why I don't come to meet you. This is why nobody wants you. You're no mother, you're a witch. Now you'll truly die alone on your deathbed. In a rage, Jason returned home to his wife and children. Hearing what had happened, Elizabeth tried to calm him down. But as night fell and Jason fell asleep again, he was haunted by a nightmare. Jason, what have you done? Why did you treat your mother so bad? After all she did for you, she raised you, she brought you up all on her own. You had no one but her, and this is how you repay her favor? Jason woke up spellbound, looking at his wife and kids, thinking, who had he been doing for all this time when his mother was suffering all by herself? I hurt my mother for them? That night, Jason took the life of his wife and daughter in a state of insanity. However, he was soon caught when the police arrived and arrested him, but it was too late for Elizabeth and Lisa. Jason was then taken into custody, however, proven mentally unstable, was sentenced to time in a mental institution where he was sedated to remain calm. Nothing the doctors did helped him because what he suffered from wasn't something physical or mental. He was possessed. Eventually, Eva brought Jason to her house, where she kept him with her until he died. If the demon has no vessel, it takes the vessel of the one who summoned it. Realizing the truth of the matter, Nolan firmly looked at his brother. I have no regrets of taking your life. Hearing his words, Colton suddenly stepped back in shock as his form dispersed into the darkness and towards Mrs. Bennet's room. Nolan immediately ran after him, seeing Mrs. Bennet lay on her bed motionless. But as he neared her, picking up a candle, he was horrified to see her bedsheets soaking wet. She had passed away, bleeding from her womb. It was early that rainy morning when the electricity and the telephone line started working again, and Nolan was able to call the police. They arrived at the house shortly after and arranged for the bodies to be taken out. Now all alone in the house after everything that had happened, Nolan came to realize it was time for him to return to his normal life. It was late that evening when Nolan reached his apartment back in Seattle. He found everything covered in a layer of dust. But as he walked around, he noticed in all these days, he had gotten only one voicemail.
Are you only going to send me flowers, or are you going to meet me?
It was Diana. She was the young woman that Colton had taken hostage. That night, when Colton had thrown her over, she had fallen on the roof of another building. And though the fall wasn't fatal, Diana had been severely injured and had gone into a coma. When Nolan saw her in this condition, he was devastated. He held himself responsible for what happened. He started visiting Diana every day where he helped care for her. It was during this time that he got to learn about her. She was a teacher. She had a hobby for painting. And it was over the days, the more he learned about her, the more he unknowingly started to fall in love with her. He spoke to her for hours, hoping it would trigger her out of her coma. When Diana regained her consciousness, she was devastated, realizing she was paralyzed from her waist down and would never be able to walk again. But Nolan continued to care for her, but Diana always kept her distance from him, hating him for not being able to save her. But despite her condition, Nolan decided to confess his love to her. Diana, I think I've fallen in love with you, and I want to marry you. What? Now you want to marry me out of your pity? Diana rejected him bitterly, assuring him he was to blame. Nolan decided to leave behind everything and go far away. But before he did, he left her flowers, along with the ring and a letter. If you ever change your mind, let me know. As soon as Nolan heard her message, he hurried to meet her. It was late that night that Diana heard a knock on her door, surprised to see it was Nolan. Do you really like me, or are you doing this out of your pity? I know you don't deserve what happened to you, but believe me, it wasn't my fault, and I only fell in love with you as I got to know you. All of a sudden, Diana got up from her wheelchair and walked up to him. Diana, you can walk again? Even if it wasn't your fault, my desire to take revenge on you inspired me to heal again. And now, I'm going to take revenge on you for the rest of your life. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting. Where do you think you're going? Zaki, run! Mother? Zaki, everything's going to be fine. Don't be afraid. Come on, get up. Let's go. Just about a week ago, when Brianna first told Aaron that he would have to travel across the Atlantic all the way to Europe to report on some saints who claimed to be humanity's saviors and were giving refuge to people in areas of conflict, war, and turmoil, he never thought these great saints would turn out to be Satan in disguise. Rather than saviors, these people were playing politics with the lives of helpless people who had no choice but to leave behind their homes and properties and came here only to save their lives and their families. These so-called refugee camps they were providing was upheld only by double standards in every aspect. People were being divided based on their religion or the color of their hair or eyes. Some were given privileges, while others were withheld from even basic rights. Some were assured of safety and security, while others suffered from horrible facilities, from the quality of their food, a place to stay, from obtaining work permits to earn their own living. Even women and children weren't spared from these double standards. Human beings were no longer treated like human beings, as if a person's religion, the color of their skin, or their eyes could make anyone any lesser of a human. Aaron drove down the lonely highway, pondering on the situation, feeling so enraged yet so helpless. When will we learn to treat humans as humans? After everything he witnessed, he felt so psychologically drained. These last few days had been so tiring. Aaron leaned back, trying to calm down to the soothing breeze in the secluded area. When all of a sudden, he noticed a woman and a young boy on the road ahead, barely hitting the brakes. Aaron screeched the car to a stop just inches away from them and peered out the window. "Are you crazy? You almost got yourself and your son killed." The woman quickly ran up to Aaron as her son followed. "Sir, please help us. We've traveled this far only in search for safety. We've been walking for a long time." Noticing the exhaustion and fatigue in their eyes, Aaron realized the matter and unlocked the door. "I understand. Get in the car. I'll get you to help." "Thank you so much, sir." The woman hastily took her son and got into the car. "I'm Aaron Moore. I'm a reporter from America. My name is Maria, and this is my son, Zaki. So, where do you want to go?" "I hear there's a refugee camp in Lutenberg, but some of my distant relatives live in Belbourne. Perhaps they might be able to help us." "All right, don't worry, I'll take you there." Aaron smiled at the young boy when he noticed the shoes on his feet. They were ragged and torn, and so was his mother's. "How long have you been traveling?" "It's almost been 6 days. We were on a boat for 3 days and reached Meriden. From there we've been on foot." "And your husband?" The woman fell silent for a while before she said, "He's no more. It's only my son and I." "I'm so sorry for your loss," Aaron said, when he suddenly realized something. "From Meriden? That's really far from here. You and your son walked this entire distance?" "Yes." "But how? There is nothing in between. Have you slept, eaten?" "We tried to rest wherever we could find some shelter, but we ran out of food and water about a day and a half ago." What? Aaron stared at Maria in surprise as he hurried to take out some leftover food he had in his bag from lunch and offered it to the boy. This is what I have with me right now. I'll try to take you two to help as soon as I can. Seeing the food, Zaki looked at his mother. Maria ushered him forward and almost instantly, Zaki took it in his hands and began eating. Aaron searched his bag and took out some juice. I'm sorry, but I don't have water with me. It'll take a while to reach there. Why don't you try to sleep and I'll call you when we get there. With that, Maria leaned back as Zaki lay down on her lap and soon fell asleep. It took nearly 3 hours to reach the refugee camp in Lutenberg, and the weather had become quite chilly as well. Aaron parked the car and turned to wake Maria and Zaki. We're here, he said. But when he looked behind him, he was startled to see there was only Zaki. Zaki sat up, clutching his mother's bag. Where is your mother? Zaki nervously stared at him. Did she get off? No, how could she? I just now stopped the car. Aaron looked out confused. How could the woman have gotten off? He hadn't stopped the car even once in the entire journey. Zaki, where is your mother? I don't know. Aaron got off the car, scanning the area. There was no one around here. He then looked at the young boy. What was he going to do now? After a while of trying to figure what happened, Aaron decided to take the boy to the camp. Don't worry, you'll be safe here. They'll take care of you. Holding Zaki's hand, Aaron brought him in to the authorities. This child needs a place to stay. What's his name? Where is he from? His family? Zaki. Aaron looked at Zaki. Where are you from? Vivillon. The man suddenly shook his head. No, we don't take refugees from Vivillon. Aaron stared at him in astonishment. But he's just a child. It's against our protocols. We only allow refugees from Dunhurst. What do you mean? What is the difference between this child and a child from Dunhurst? There might not be any difference in your eyes, but there is a big political difference. Hearing the man's words, Aaron felt enraged. What is wrong with you people? Have you lost all your humanity? Is everything politics for you people? The rules are rules. And if you are so sympathetic for these people, why don't you keep him? Seeing the arrogant snicker on the man's face, Aaron burned in rage, but somehow controlled himself. Fine, I will. With that, he took hold of Zaki's hand and stormed out of there. Now all alone in this foreign country, Aaron stood in the middle of this unknown neighborhood with this young boy. What was he going to do now? As night fell, the weather became quite cold. Aaron looked at Zaki begin to shiver. Aaron got down to Zaki and put the jacket on him, as he told him, "Don't worry, we'll figure something out. Your mother said you had some distant relatives in Belbourne. Do you know their address?" Zaki opened up his bag and began searching. Aaron realized he was carrying money and jewelry, perhaps belonging to his mother. Zaki took out a paper and handed it to him. This address is almost a day's drive away. All right, let's get going then. Zaki sat inside the car, clutching onto the bag. "You can keep the bag in here. It'll be safe," Aaron said, opening one of the compartments. "Come on, you want to sit up front?" "Yes." Zaki climbed in and sat next to Aaron as he started the car. The boy quietly looked out the window as they drove off. The journey was long and exhausting. Aaron hadn't slept in over a day, but he managed to pull through. "Is everything all right? Do you need anything?" I'm hungry." Sometime in the middle of the night, Aaron stared at his watch. They had been driving for almost 5 hours. He had almost forgotten about food. "We'll stop at the next place to eat, all right?" After driving almost half an hour more, Aaron stopped at a small shop and finally took a break. "They have burgers, fries, or do you want to have a gyro?" "A gyro." "With white sauce?" "Yeah, me too." After having a real meal in what was days, Aaron and Zaki got on the road again. There was still a long way to go. "I have to go." "Go where?" "Oh, but we're in the middle of nowhere." "Not looking." What happened?" "It's morning already? How much longer?" "We'll be there soon." After driving the entire day, near evening, Aaron and Zaki finally reached the address. As they parked outside a small home, hearing the car, a man rushed out the door. Zaki widened his eyes as he ran out towards him, and the man took him in his arms. "Uncle!" "Zaki, we've been waiting since we got the letter from your father. It's been over a week. We were so worried for you guys. Where's your mother and your father?" Zaki stared at his uncle, suddenly becoming teary. "Zaki, where are they?" But Zaki was quiet. Aaron stepped out to greet the family. "Hello, I'm Aaron Moore. I'm a reporter from America." "Hello. I found Zaki in Burdale. He was lost. He gave me this address, so I was able to bring him here." "And his parents?" "I think his mother and father are no more." Zaki's uncle fell silent as he wiped away his tears. "Thank you so much for bringing him back to us. Anyone else in your place would have taken advantage of this young boy. Please, come inside. Stay with us for dinner." No, that will be all right. I should get going." Aaron handed Zaki Maria's bag. "So, this is goodbye. Take good care of yourself, all right, Zaki?" "All right, goodbye." Maria, was she really with him? What did I see? That day, Maria was able to save her son, but she couldn't save herself. After her death, she guided her son to safety. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting. The following story is based on true events. The weather was crisp and cool, as always in the small town of Birr in Ireland. By 6 in the morning, everyone was up and about, ready to start a new day. The sun was out, the birds were chirping, and only a few clouds could be seen in the clear blue skies. That was until sometime midday around 11. The people looked up at the skies, seeing everything around them darken. In a sudden, heavy clouds swiftly covered over the warm rays of the sun, leaving behind all but a slight reddish tone to the greenery that surrounded them. But it wasn't quite the gloomy atmosphere that made everyone uneasy. It was the unusual mist, a dense fog that suddenly dispersed, encompassing the trees through the empty roads of Birr. Conroy Ahern was on his way back home from work. He drove down this same narrow road every day, but today he was barely able to make out what was around him. The light on his motorbike only allowed him to see a few feet ahead as the eerie fog got more dense. Conroy slowed down the bike, fearing an accident, when suddenly he almost lost balance. He was just barely able to swerve the motorbike to a stop, nearly toppling over. "I guess I'll be walking my way home." Conroy straightened his motorbike and began walking along the hazy road. It was a long way, but eventually he started to catch a glimpse of his home up ahead. He pushed his motorbike onto the lawn and tied on the lock when he heard his wife, Maeve, open the doors and usher him inside. She looked pale in worry. "What's going on, Conroy? What's happening?" Conroy let out a deep breath as he stepped inside. "I don't know. I closed the store and decided to come back. Something's not right. There's no one left at the market. Everyone's frightened. They're shutting down and leaving." Looking out the window, Maeve stared at the fog pass by the roads in front of her house. "I've never seen anything like this." Grandmother Claudia walked into the room with her rosary dangling in her hands. She mumbled as she took a seat in her rocking chair. "It's the end. It's the end." "Where are the boys, Maeve?" "They're in their rooms." "Good." "Brendan, what are you doing? You know Mom told us not to go out. Haven't you seen what's going on outside? Brannon, I need to go see it. What if something happens?" "Nothing will happen." Brendan, the elder of the two, was desperate to see what the sudden mist was all about. He took his pocket knife, his lighter, and his flashlight and climbed out the window on the second floor. Brannon peered out anxiously. "Brendan, I don't think this is a good idea." "I'll be back in 2 minutes," Brendan called out before he jumped, landing on his toes on their backyard. The Ahern's house was surrounded by the woods on 3 sides and a small narrow path that led out to the main road in front of their home. Brendan had been watching the fog seeping through the trees from his window. But only a few steps into the wood, he began rubbing his arms. It was hard to see anything. Brendan was getting goosebumps all over his body, breathing in the moist air. A while into walking, Brendan suddenly saw a few people up ahead. He didn't recognize them, and he couldn't see them that clearly either. How were all these people walking out in this weather? Trying to get a better look, he kept walking on. When he suddenly froze, seeing the figure of a man emerging from the mist. "Uncle Calum?" Brendan asked in surprise. "Don't come near me. Go from here. Go home and close the doors. Tell everyone to keep the doors and windows locked, and don't come out." A bit nervous hearing his uncle's tone, Brendan stumbled back and hurried home. but this time he was having trouble finding his way, seeing nothing through the mist. He scrambled through his pockets trying to switch on his flashlight when he suddenly gasped, bumping into someone. "Brendan, where were you?" Brendan breathed out in relief, hearing his mother. "Didn't I tell you to stay inside? Do you know how worried your father and I were? Let's go right now." "But mother, wait. I saw... What? What did you see?" "I saw Uncle Calum. He was right there." Maeve looked out into the fog. Overcome by dread, she quickly grabbed hold of her son and rushed back to the house. Conroy was now in the living room trying to fix the radio. Seeing his wife return with the son, he put it down and sighed. "It's not working. The electricity's out. I can't get a signal on the radio and the phone's down too." Maeve nervously went up to her husband. "Conroy, Brendan's saying he saw Calum outside." "What? Calum? No. Brendan, how could you go outside like this after you saw what's happening?" "But father, I really did. Uncle Calum told me to go back home. He told us to lock our doors and windows." Conroy shook his head, returning to fix the radio. "That can't be." Grandmother Claudia closed her eyes as she whispered, "He's coming, just like the good book says. The dead has walked." Maeve strictly warned both of her children to stay inside before she went around locking all the windows and doors. "You ratted me out." "Me ratting you out saved your life." With the coming of evening, the weather became cold and the skies dark. Grandmother Claudia lit a few lanterns and sat down while the boys passed time by the table. "It's going to get really cold at night, Maeve. It's already cold. Let me go out and bring some firewood." "What? Dad, Uncle Calum said not to go out tonight." "That can't be your uncle." "No, Conroy, it's not safe at this time." "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Conroy took his axe and a flashlight and went out around his house to the shed. There was a breeze accompanied by the mist that swirled in the air now. He had never been out in this much fog before and had nearly tripped a few times. As he slowly stepped on the grass heading to the shed from his memory, he suddenly felt a presence around him. He flashed his light around, but it was of no help. "Who is it? Who's there?" But it was silent. But Conroy was sure there had to be someone. He could faintly hear the sounds of footsteps. "Identify yourself. Who is out there?" Conroy continued onto the shed, feeling for the handle of the door. He took the bundle of firewood, standing still as he slowly closed the doors again, suspiciously waiting to hear the noises. But there was nothing but the eerie sound of the crickets chirping now. Conroy hurried back home and locked the doors again. That night, as he set fire to the fireplace, Maeve stirred up a pot of coddle with meat and potatoes. Huddling in the midst of the lanterns, the family warmed up to dinner and went to bed, hoping the night would pass on soon. "Look, boys, you know the condition outside. Go to sleep in your room and don't open your windows, all right?" After the boys fell sound asleep in their rooms, the parents went to sleep as well. The house fell silent. Until sometime in the middle of the night, Maeve woke up, startled to Brannon calling her name. "Mom, Mom, wake up. There's someone knocking outside my window." "What? On the second floor?" "Yes, Mom. Come on, come with me." Maeve woke up her husband, and the parents rushed to the boys' room, concerned themselves to find what their son had said was true. However, it wasn't just outside the boys' room, but around the whole house. They could hear someone walking outside. "Wake everyone up. Let's all stay together for the night," Conroy said as he returned back to his room. He took out his rifle and joined everyone in the living room. Maeve had set the fireplace again and sat down with her sons, awfully worried. Grandmother Claudia began whispering prayers. When suddenly, the family sat up, startled to a loud knock on the door. "Who's there?" Conroy asked harshly, but there was no reply, again. Instead, the knocking soon turned to a loud banging sound. Brendan and Brandon hurried to the windows and peered outside. "Boys, come back here," Maeve said, frightened. "Mom, maybe we can see who it is from here." All of a sudden, the banging increased so much that the door began to shake. Grandmother Claudia clutched onto her rosary, grasping her hands firm together, chanting her prayers loudly. "The time has come. The time has come." Conroy targeted straight at the door as he yelled out, loud and clear, "Leave our property. Go away from here or I will shoot." But even then, the banging continued. Conroy put his hand to the trigger, preparing to shoot at any given moment, as the rest of the family huddled together, anxious in anticipation of what was to come next. But suddenly, everything fell silent again. Conroy could hear the sounds of the footsteps slowly fade off in the distance. He tried to keep calm and stay strong for his family, but he too was afraid inside after what happened. It was 12 a.m. There were still long hours of the night to go. Conroy lit a torch, he kept his gun loaded, and stayed on guard, pacing in the living room in front of the door all night. Fortunately, the family was left to peace the rest of the night. The sun is rising," Maeve said, seeing the few rays of sunlight seep through the curtains. Brendan jumped up to the window and peered out. "Dad, the fog has cleared. There's no more smoke." Conroy finally opened the doors, breathing in the fresh air. Every leaf, stone and twig were drenched in dew. The family finally met some relief, knowing they had survived the night. The electricity didn't return until later that evening. Conroy sat down again, trying to catch a signal on the radio, when the news suddenly turned on. "I got it! Everyone come, the news is on!"
Good evening to everyone in Bear.
After a strange night, today's morning has been nothing but relieving. Authorities have reported a severe storm on the south side of town being the reason behind the mysterious fog. The horrible weather had damaged the power plant, leading to a power outage and shutdown of radio and telephone connections yesterday. With everyone back in touch, the police has announced that some of the townsfolk are missing. Many people are coming forth, sharing their experience about this mysterious occurrence, claiming to have witnessed the deceased walking. Some believing, while others are skeptic, but one thing that had happened will certainly frighten anyone. This morning, some graves at the town cemetery and some in other places have been discovered dug open, and the bodies missing. We have Chief Deputy Olson with us here to give us some insight as to what happened. It was midday of yesterday when all of our phone lines and radio stopped working. We sent out our officers to patrol the town, and some of them haven't returned and are presumably missing, while 2 of our officers have reported seeing something as well. "Officer, it's hard to make out anything here. I've never seen the weather like this before. What do you think this is? Wait, I think I see something." Police officers had halted their motorbikes on a dark route, unable to navigate their way, when they suddenly saw some men walking on the street ahead of them. "Who are you?" But the men didn't answer. They simply continued walking down the road, out of sight, into the fog. We don't know what we saw last night. So there you have it, folks. The police are now trying to locate the whereabouts of the missing people. But it seems that perhaps what happened last night will remain to be a mystery. BII News, Birr, Ireland. click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting. Jean has been a student at the BII College in Canton, New York for about a year and a half now. And finally, after a long wait on the list, she got a room at the girls' hostel, though strangely, in the middle of the semester, almost near spring break. Here are the keys to your room. Don't share them with anyone. Right now you can have the room to yourself unless someone else moves in. The curfew time is strictly 7 p.m, no guests allowed overnight, and don't go to the 5th floor locker room. The bathroom is out of order. You will have to use the locker room on the 2nd floor. All this time, Jean couldn't find a vacancy at the hostel, but now that she finally got a room, she got it all to herself. However, Jean soon realized how messed up the hostel actually was. The rooms were cramped, it was crowded. All you could find at the canteen was some bland old food. But the most horrendous of all things was the 2nd floor locker room. Looking into the bathroom stalls, the showers, Jean was grossed out. It was broken down, filthy, and disgusting. Whoever thought girls were clean needed to spend a day at this hostel. And to add to the annoyance, there was no elevator, so every time she had to use the bathroom, she had to take the stairs from the 4th to the 2nd floor. The first morning at the hostel, Jean woke up, got her towel and headed down, only to be halted by a line. What's the line for? To the bathroom. If you want to be first, you have to come an hour early. What? A week into bearing through the bathroom madness, waking up early, sometimes running to college without even using the bathroom, or having to return to a wet, gross bathroom, Jean was absolutely fed up. The locker room would only be cleaned out once a week, and even then, there would be a fight amongst the girls on who would go first. It was late on one of these nights. Jean woke up having to go. But imagining the condition of the bathroom after the entire day, Jean cringed. Nonetheless, she had to go. Reaching the stairs, Jean stopped staring at the signboard of the 5th floor and instantly thought, why not? All the stalls couldn't be out of order. Jean peeked up the stairs. It was dark. So quickly grabbing her flashlight, she sneaked up to the 5th floor. There were cobwebs, it was a bit dusty, but at least it didn't smell here. Finding the bathroom, Jean went in. The lights didn't work, but she was surprised to find the bathroom in tip-top shape. Why don't they just fix up this place instead of hoarding everyone downstairs? Propping up her flashlight onto the counter, Jean turned on the tap, surprised to find there was running water. Great, finally I can use the bathroom in peace. But while she was doing her business, for some reason, she was getting a strange feeling as if someone were watching her. And then, all of a sudden, her flashlight went out. Finishing up, Jean slowly walked out. As her eyes adjusted, she found her flashlight on the floor. How did it get here? The bathroom was silent and empty. However, it wouldn't be a shocker if a few students did sneak up here. Jean washed her hands and headed out. But as she walked down the hall, she got that feeling again. Is anyone here? No reply. So Jean returned to her room and fell sound asleep. It was some time later, she woke up hearing a knock on her door. Who is it at this time? But when she opened, the halls were empty. Someone must have seen me go upstairs and followed me here. Whatever it was, Jean shrugged it off and went back to bed. The next day, she had a hectic schedule at college. She skipped out on taking a shower in the morning, and by the time she returned, climbed up 4 flights of stairs wearing her jacket, she was sweaty and smelly. She really needed to take a shower. But instead of going downstairs, she decided to just go upstairs. This time, Jean took the light bulb from her room, got her flashlight, waited till everyone was in their rooms before she headed upstairs again. Perfect. Jean headed into the shower. The water felt so soothing. But again, a while into bathing, the lights flickered off. Great, it had to fuse right now? Putting on her bathrobe, Jean stepped out and got her flashlight. But the minute she turned it on, she froze upon what she saw. On the mirror, someone had written, "You have a nice figure." Jean now felt a little uncomfortable. Even the other night, she felt like she wasn't alone. Was someone else in here? Had someone been watching her use the bathroom? Suddenly catching a glimpse of something in the reflection, Jean frantically shone her light around. "Who's there? I know you've been following me." It was utterly silent, but Jean felt uneasy. She quickly grabbed her things and was about to leave, when she stepped into a puddle of something black. What is this? It was rolling down from her stall. Frightened at this point, Jean just rushed out and hurried back to her room. What just happened up there? In all this, she didn't realize the burning sensation on her back. She was shocked to see a deep scratch bleeding out. When did this happen? Jean cleaned up and went straight to bed, feeling anxious. She couldn't understand what happened. And in all this, someone knocked on her door again. It was late. Jean looked out her peephole. She couldn't spot anyone. But again, she flinched to another knock. What was happening? Jean propped up a chair to the door and lay down on the bed, feeling scared to her core. The entire night, the knocking went on and on, until sometime near dawn, Jean fell asleep. The next day went by as usual, but Jean couldn't forget the previous night. What am I afraid of? I don't believe in all of this. But then, what happened? Could there really be something more to it? So that night, Jean decided not to stay by herself. There was definitely something strange going on, whatever it was. Jean, what's up? Anna, can I stay in your room for tonight? I was feeling a bit lonely. I thought you might. You can stay if it's okay with my roommate. Monica, is it alright if she stays tonight? Yeah, it's fine. I was actually wondering how you were staying all alone. Much of the night, the three girls stay awake talking. Anna, what's the matter with the 5th floor locker room? Why doesn't anyone go there? I really don't know, but people are very strict about it. You want to know why? Why? This is my last year, but when I first enrolled, in my freshman year, something strange happened with these three girls. Colleen, Abigail, and Betty. They were friends, and I used to know them. Colleen was found lifeless in one of the stalls on the 5th floor. No one could find out what happened, even the police. But after her death, Abigail and Betty started behaving strange, complaining the bathroom was haunted. Colleen's death was tragic, and it probably traumatized them. But as with all things, the rest of us moved on. Until Betty suddenly went missing from the hostel one day, and a couple days later, Abigail was found having taken her life. After that, the staff restricted anyone from using the 5th floor locker room. There's just been something about it. People say it's haunted by Colleen's spirit. After hearing the story, Jean didn't know what to believe. She knew she felt something off, but was it really because of some spirit lurking in the bathroom? For the next few days, Jean didn't go to the 5th floor, but she became more curious. What did she experience that day? There had to be something. Colleen perhaps passed away in an accident. Why did Abigail take her life? And besides them, what about Betty? How could she just go missing? One night, as she thought about everything, she decided to go back upstairs the last time. Maybe there was a clue. Maybe she could find out what really happened. Around midnight, Jean took her flashlight and a knife just in case, and went upstairs. It was quiet. Stepping into the bathroom, she shone her flashlight around, staring at the scratches on the mirror again. Jean started to hear a drip. Following the sound, she stood in front of that stall. When she opened the door, however, she froze, seeing that black liquid rolling down around to her shoes. It was oozing out of the back wall. What was this? Jean stepped closer, trying to see what it was, when she suddenly heard something. It was coming from behind the wall. Gathering her courage, she took her knife and began breaking the wall apart. When suddenly, everything came crumbling down. Jean yelled out in horror as she looked at a body, half decayed, gaping at her. A few years ago, when this hostel first opened, there was a young woman named Abigail who used to attend the university and stay here. She was beautiful and oftentimes would have many guys following her. For the most part, Abigail didn't mind, except for when it came to one person, Dean. Dean would hit on her and say the most inappropriate things. You can't eat the same candy all the time. You have to change up the flavor. You're gross. But you're the flavor that I'm desperate to have. Buzz off. Abigail always tried to stay away from him. But sometimes she noticed Dean would follow her all the way to the hostel. He followed me here. He's such a creep. But he's always stalking me. He's like that. He's always after all the girls. You know what? If he's that desperate, why don't you tell him to come over to the hostel on Friday night for a party and provoke him to come? We'll teach this guy a lesson. What are we going to do to him? I don't want to get into trouble. You'll see, no one will get into trouble. So the next time Dean started bugging Abigail, she did exactly that. Dean, you know something? We're having a party. Why don't you come over? To the girls' hostel? In the middle of the night? What? You don't have the guts? I'll be there, babes. But I hope after the party, there'll be some candy. So on Friday night, Abigail sneaked Dean in. But going to their room, he was surprised to find only 2 other girls. I thought this was a party. Where is everyone? There's the 3 of us. You think you can handle it? Nice. I really needed a drink. That night, the girls humored Dean as he drank and soon passed out. Is he alright? How much did you mix in the drink? I can't feel his heartbeat. He's not even breathing. We have to take him to the hospital. Are you crazy? What are we going to tell them? We sneaked him to the girls' hostel and then drugged him? But that wasn't our plan. We only wanted to scare him off. We didn't want to take his life. No. You did all this to take revenge, didn't you? Because he didn't pay you any attention. Oh really? Now it's on me. You all were in it. And he's probably dead already. If the police get involved, do you realize how scandalous this would be? We'd be expelled. Our lives would be over. Then what are we going to do now? We have to get rid of the body. At the time, the 5th floor was still under construction. Part of the bathroom was incomplete. So the girls took Dean's body and buried him behind one of the walls. What if someone finds out? No one's gonna find out. Just stay quiet. A guy stopped coming to college. That's nothing new. His parents might file a missing report, but no one's gonna come searching at a girls' hostel for him. As the girls predicted, no one was suspicious of them. However, in the following days, strange things began to happen. Abigail was tormented by her guilt. She couldn't sleep. She woke up in the middle of the night, hearing things. I can hear his voice. She was going crazy. And in all this, one day, Colleen was found lifeless while taking a shower in the 5th floor. After that, the locker room was closed off. Nobody could figure what happened to her. But Betty knew what was going on. They were being haunted, and if she stayed, she wouldn't be spared. So one day, without telling anyone anything, Betty left. After that, Abigail became lonely. She started seeing Dean everywhere, and soon started to lose her mind, until things came to the point where she couldn't take it and took her own life. When 2 days went by in which Jean was missing, the college staff informed the police, and in the search, her body was discovered on the 5th floor. This is the 2nd time someone passed away here. But how? Another accident? Something's not right. click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting. Justin hasn't come down for dinner yet? I knew that girl was no good. She's corrupted your son's mind. She's a succubus. I'm telling you, Terry. She's enchanted my son. Patty, the boy just went through a bad breakup. If only he listened to me, he wouldn't have fallen in her trap. You know what? I'll go call him myself. Justin? Where did he go? The Collins live in the small, quiet town of Ballard, Utah. Here, there weren't many people, nor many places to go, but everyone knew everyone. Justin was Mr. and Mrs. Collins' youngest child, which was born to them at almost 50. Hence, to Mrs. Collins, Justin was the apple of her eye. Justin went to the local high school, was part of the neighborhood baseball league. He was an adventurous, fun-loving teen. But things changed ever since he began dating Cynthia. Where were you? Do you know how late you are? I got caught up with Friend's mom. Friends? Or that girl? Justin, you've been failing your classes. Your coach called me. You haven't been going to practice. Don't you see this girl is controlling you? Mom, I'm tired. I don't want to talk right now. Justin, listen to me. How am I going to make this boy understand? Terry, can you believe him? Kids these days, they don't listen to elders anymore. That girl is a witch. She's cast a spell on your son. Patty, he's growing up. You can't expect to be the only woman in your son's life. Give him some space. So I can lose my son to her? Can't you see she's a leech? She's ruining his life. Ever since Justin started dating Cynthia, she was all he could think about. It was as if all his ambitions went down the drain. He was skipping classes, wasting money, sneaking out at night. And most of all, he didn't listen to Patty anymore. To Justin, his mother was old, superstitious, and overly possessive, and best ignored. And while Patty was losing her mind, Terry was trying to cope with this teenage phase. But then, they broke up. Late one night, Justin simply walked in through the door as if he didn't even care about getting caught after clearly having snuck out. Justin, it's 2 a.m., where were you? But Justin simply went into his room and shut the door. And from then on, the boy had completely changed. He slept late into the day, he stopped going out or hanging out with friends. He stayed all alone in his room in the darkness. That wicked girl. I've been telling you, she was toying with him. She's a demon. She's cursed my son. Patty, he just needs time. Let him get over it. But days went by, and Justin only seemed to get more depressed and isolated. He stopped eating, and from what it seemed, he didn't sleep either. Justin, sweetheart, Mom made you everything you like. Oh, I can't wait. Let's watch the football game and eat. What do you say, champ? I'm not hungry. I knew it. She's a vampire. She's infected my son. He stays in the dark, he doesn't sleep, he doesn't eat. Maybe I should go talk to him. Terry tried speaking with Justin, but every time it seemed Justin was hardly even paying attention to him. Terry had expected this to be another phase, but now it seemed things were getting out of hand. What happened with this boy? It was 1 a.m., but Justin didn't care. Ever since that night, he had been waiting for this. He had been waiting for a chance to get her alone. And tonight, he would go to her place. He stood outside of Cynthia's house. The lights were all off. He jumped over the fence and around the house, peering into each window before he climbed up. There she was, sleeping. Justin pried the window open and stepped in, just as Cynthia woke up startled. "Justin?" She immediately got out of bed and went to him, tearing up. "Justin, I'm so sorry. I thought you were... I was too afraid to call. I didn't know what to do." Justin looked into her eyes. "So desperate to see me? I haven't stopped thinking about you. The wait is finally over." Justin and Cynthia were both seniors at the local BII High and have been dating for almost a year. But unfortunately, both their parents simply hated the other. Cynthia's parents were overly protective of their only daughter, and Justin's mother was old, outdated, superstitious, and overly possessive about her only son. But that didn't stop the teens from meeting each other, and they started to ditch school and practice just to be together. But there was just one problem. "I wish we could go somewhere a little more private." "Well, your place and my place are off limits, but I think I know what we can do." "What?" "You've heard of that ranch at the end of Bullard, right? I heard there's an abandoned treehouse there. Wanna go?" To the ranch? Justin, no one goes there. You know what people say about that place, it's creepy. "Cynthia, do you really believe that? It's bogus. Everyone in this town is superstitious. Heck, they say Grandma Betty's spirit lurks on Baker Street at night." "Well, they wouldn't have said that if they never spotted her in the first place." "Cynthia, Grandma Betty isn't even dead." "Alright, fine. Isn't your mom one of those fanatics? How did you turn out a skeptic?" "Well, she does say one thing right. I wouldn't mind if you were a succubus. Maybe I am, you just don't know yet. So, are we meeting up by the wooden post of the ranch?" "At 12. So, Justin and Cynthia decided they would take their bicycles and sneak out at night to the old tree house at the ranch. "Finally, you're here. I've been waiting 20 minutes. You know how hard it is to sneak out of my place?" Justin and Cynthia walked along the path into the ranch. After the owner and his family simply disappeared from their property, people started spreading rumors of ghosts, spooks, and more. Later, folk who went to search apparently went missing themselves, and eventually, the townspeople decided to abandon the whole ranch. Was that the sound of coyotes? Don't worry, they're naturally afraid of people, as long as you don't make the mistake of running. Justin and Cynthia reached the treehouse without much trouble. But it was the moment they got in, Cynthia yelped out, to seeing a coyote crouched up in the darkness. Justin quickly silenced her and took out his Zippo and lit it. The coyote stared at them viciously, but Justin swiftly took out his pocket knife and yelled at the animal, "Get out of here! Go!" The coyote instantly backed away and jumped out. But it wasn't a while before Cynthia could get comfortable. The couple spent a fun night there before sneaking back home. And soon, this became a regular for them. It was one night, Justin reached the treehouse, surprised to see Cynthia waiting for him. "You're here early tonight. Couldn't get you out of my mind. You look beautiful. You like it? How long are you going to keep me waiting, Justin?" "Waiting? For what?" "You know for what." "I thought you wanted to wait." "No, Justin, tonight is the night." As Cynthia neared closer to him, Justin got extremely excited, but just as he was about to hold her, they heard a noise from the ladder. "Justin?" Justin turned around, looking at Cynthia. Shocked to her core, she stared at someone who looked exactly like her. Justin stumbled back as he looked at the two. "What? How can this be? Who are you?" "That's not me, Justin." With a smirk on its face, it got up and suddenly morphed its shape. "You shouldn't have come here. You step into my territory, you become my prey." Seeing her, Cynthia screamed out in fear. "Justin, run!" Somehow managing to push the creature away, Justin and Cynthia jumped out of the treehouse. Go get your bike!" They both scrambled onto their bicycles, heedless of the injuries they had gotten. Cynthia and Justin began to ride off. As she turned, horrified to see the thing morph into a coyote. And jump out, chasing after them. "Justin, it's behind you! Go, Cynthia, go!" Cynthia didn't stop that night until she reached her house and snuck in, trembling in fear as she wrapped herself in her blanket. She didn't know what it was, but she knew whatever it was wanted their lives. She was devastated thinking about Justin. Was he alright? Did he escape? There was no way she could go back now, and she was too afraid to tell her parents. The next day, Cynthia anxiously waited by the phone, hoping Justin would call her, let her know he was alright, but he didn't. Cynthia thought about calling his place, but she was too afraid of his mother. She tried calling his friends, but they all said they hadn't seen him around. Days went by, and Cynthia waited desperately, hoping Justin would come to her or send her news. And finally, he came. "You had me so worried. I thought you were dead." "We're never going there again, Justin. What was that thing?" "Did you tell anyone about it?" "No. Are you crazy? I've just been waiting here in the dark, worried sick about you." "So, you're the only one who knows my secret now." Seeing the smirk appear on Justin's lips, Cynthia stepped back, confused. "What? Did you really think you could run away from me?" "No." It was many, many years ago. A man in town had bought this land, thinking he'd build a ranch. He moved in with his wife and children, and they were happy until strange things began to happen. Sweetheart, come here. Linda, when did you get here? Weren't you in the house? Come with me, George. George, what are you doing out in the woods? I thought you went to the orchard. No, honey, I was here. There's something I need to show you. Come. Mom? Dad? Where are you? Mom? Dad? No one knew whatever happened to the family. They say they simply disappeared. Those who went never returned, and those who did never survived. And now, no one dares step foot in the Skinwalker Ranch. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting. It has been over a month since Raul has been working at this small subway store at a train station in New York City. He works the night shift from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. And the store's owner, Frank Costello, covers the day shift from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. And together, they run the store 24/7. The store was located on the upper platform of the subway. And while summers were hot and humid, in the winter, it got extremely cold. The weather was sometimes unbearable. When it rained, everything got wet. And when it snowed, it was freezing. Nonetheless, Raul managed the store through it all, never even taking a day off. But even then, Frank gave him very little pay. And why wouldn't he? Frank had a certain advantage over Raul's situation, as Raul didn't have any legal documents. He traveled here a few months ago so that he could take care of his brothers and sisters back home. Though Raul despised working here, he was fortunate to have gotten the job in the first place, and he had to make things work out. People say this subway station is haunted. But according to Raul, if this subway was haunted in any way, it would be by its loneliness. After midnight, all the express trains turned to local trains, and only about one train arrived every hour or so. And at times, this station truly felt like a ghost station. The only person present would be Raul throughout much of the long nights. However, there was one thing Raul waited for every night. Around 11 p.m., a young woman came to the subway. Raul would watch her from the store. She would sit on the benches up ahead and quietly wait for her train. And tonight, like all other nights, Raoul was watching the time tick by on his watch, waiting for her again. Sure enough, a few minutes past 11, he spotted her. Today the weather had been really cold. The temperature was in the negatives, and the winds were howling near 20 miles per hour. Usually, the trains came on time before midnight, but today they were coming almost 2 hours late. Raoul stood at the store, watching the young woman, wondering, should I just go talk to her? No, she won't talk to a stranger. Then again, she might. This is New York. We're all strangers. Why am I overthinking? What's the worst thing that can happen? She'll say no? So Raoul decided to make 2 cups of coffee and went and sat next to her. Hi, I'm Raoul. I work at that store. The young woman looked at him. Yes, I know, she quietly said before she looked out for the train again. It's really cold tonight. I thought you might need a hot coffee. Passing another glance at him, the young woman shook her head. No, thank you. I'm all right. You don't feel cold? No, I'm fine. Feeling a bit embarrassed, Raoul fell silent for a while. Is she thinking I'm one of those type of guys, trying to hit on her? Raoul quickly nodded and pointed at the ceiling. You know these subway cameras record everything. So if anybody tries anything wrong, they won't be able to get away with it. That's when the young woman suddenly chuckled. Most of these cameras never work. A heavy gust of wind passed down the platform. Raoul was frigid in the cold. But the young woman simply sat there, not too bothered. Raoul placed her coffee on the bench and sighed. I'm really not used to this weather. Where I'm from, it's very warm. You must have grown up here. No, I got used to it. So, you're not from here? No, I moved from Georgia. Oh, okay. You don't know where Georgia is, do you? Not really. It's only been a few months since I moved to America. The young woman smiled at him. Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm Raoul. Everyone comes to the Big Apple seeking the American dream. True. You and me, we aren't very different. I also came to the Big Apple for the same reason. Do you like working here? I see you every night. Well, I really don't have any other choice. But what about you? I see you here every night as well. You know something? This isn't really my station. I come here every night by mistake. Raoul looked at her confused. By mistake? Michelle looked out, catching a glimpse of the train ahead. Oh, that's my train. She got up and took her bag to step forward. Raoul watched her nearing the edge, wondering if he would see her again tomorrow, whether they would talk again. But just as the train came speeding down, all of a sudden, Michelle ran off the platform. Near dawn at 5 a.m., Frank arrived at the station. As he walked down the snow-covered platform, he suddenly noticed someone laying on the ground. Reaching closer, he realized it was Raoul. Raoul! Wake up, Raoul! Hearing his voice, Raoul regained his consciousness and opened his eyes. Frank was back, It was morning. The station was empty. Everything was covered over by a fresh coat of snow. "Are you okay? Were you unconscious here the whole night in the snow? How are you still alive?" Getting on his feet again, Raoul brushed himself off. "I'm fine." "How did this happen?" Raoul looked up at the cameras. These cameras never work, do they? Up ahead, Raoul spotted the next train speeding down the tracks. He looked at Frank. What? In the blink of his eyes, Frank yelled out in shock as Raoul pushed him over onto the tracks. Almost a year ago, at the time Michelle was 19 years old, she was living with her family in Georgia. But she had big dreams of living in the city, in New York City, and her family was completely against it. It was only after a lot of arguments that Michelle left to be on her own. After arriving to the Big Apple, Michelle moved in with a friend and soon got a job as a salesperson at Binham. Every day she would have to work long hours, exhausting herself, until she was off at 10 p.m. On her usual nights, she would take a train back home. It was around the New Year's. There was a severe snowstorm passing over the city, and on one of those frigid cold nights, Michelle headed to the station and took her usual train. However, what she didn't realize was that, due to the bad weather, the train had taken a different route and dropped her at the wrong station. When she finally came to realize, Michelle got a bit panicked. It was past midnight, and she couldn't gather up the courage to head down in an absolutely unknown area at that time of the night to catch a cab. Instead, she thought if she waited a while longer, she could catch another train. So Michelle sat down, but the winds were piercing cold, and Michelle was freezing sitting there. Seeing the small store on the platform, Michelle got herself a cup of coffee and tried to wait it out. However, as the night passed, the snow became heavier and the weather absolutely unbearable. That's when Michelle went to the store again. "I'm really not used to this cold. Could you help me out?" At the time, Frank had been running the store on his own, and seeing the beautiful woman, he called her in. "All right, come in." Finally standing behind the counter, Michelle got a bit of relief. But she soon started to get uncomfortable by how close Frank stood by her. She tried backing away, but Frank chuckled seeing her so stressed. "It's all right. Don't be shy." "Excuse me, don't come near me." That night, Frank had his way with Michelle. In the empty station, in the middle of the snowstorm, no one was there to help her, or even hear her cries. Devastated by what happened, Michelle clutched onto her jacket, crying as she walked down the platform again. But seeing her leave, Frank ran towards her. "Listen, don't do anything rash. Don't tell anyone." Startled and afraid, Michelle shouted, "Don't touch me." But at that moment, Frank realized if he let her leave, he would get him into big trouble. And just as the train arrived that night, Frank did what he had to and pushed her onto the tracks, taking her life. The next morning, When people discovered her body, they called it an accident. And when police arrived, they tried getting footage from the cameras, but found out the cameras were old and damaged, and simply came to the same conclusion. She must have slipped and fell in the bad weather. On the other hand, Frank had gotten away with what he did, or so he did for the time being. That morning, police arrived to the scene to take away the remains of Frank Costello. One of the officers came to speak with Raul, the only person present at the time. What happened here? The platform had been icy and slippery because of the snow. Perhaps Mr. Costello lost his balance and fell over. Accidents aren't something new in this station. This happened with another young woman here many months ago. Ruling Frank's death as yet another accident, Raul had gotten away just like he did. And in the following days, Frank's wife came to meet Raul and handed the responsibility of the store to him. Raul now works here. Every night, he sits and waits. But the station is empty and utterly silent. Raul never saw Michelle again. But it was late one night, when he was closing the store. He saw something strange in the snow. Thank you.
Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.
It was 8:15 when Leslie woke up. She looked out the frost-covered windows to see the streets, houses, and cars, all covered in snow. Leslie shivered, feeling the cool breeze seeping in through the glass. Despite wanting to stay comfy and cozy at home, the heaters in the house weren't working. So she put on a jacket and a pair of socks to bear through the cold. Walking out into the kitchen, Leslie saw her mom wasn't there. There was no breakfast on the table or coffee brewing in the machine. She turned to go to her parents' room, but her mom wasn't there either. Hearing noises from the backyard, Leslie rushed to check. Creaking open the door to see her dad shoveling. "Where's Mom?" In a low voice he said. "Your uncle came around 10 last night. She went to your grandma's with him. When is she coming back?" "I don't know." Watching her dad angrily shovel the snow, Leslie anxiously stepped back inside and went straight to his room. She looked through her mom's wardrobe and closet. Everything was still there. In fact, Mom's phone was still on the desk. Leslie hoped this wouldn't be true, but she knew her mom didn't go to her grandma's, because she saw her last at 2 a.m. the previous night. Ever since the start of this pandemic, her parents had constantly been arguing. To say, their relationship had gotten quite strained. But it was especially after her dad lost his job during the lockdown that the fights increased. In the dead of winter, when it was piercing cold out, her dad was struggling to pay the electricity bills and the gas bill, not to mention the rent. "Scott, how are we going to stay like this? The electricity is going to be cut off. You have to pay the bill." "Pay the bill? From where? Where am I going to get the money?" Without much choice, they had to move to this small house far from town in a rather questionable area. which her mom didn't like at all. Now we have to move there? What do you want me to do? You know our situation. The house was old and run down. The walls were peeling away. The floorboards creaked. The ceiling leaked. The plumbing and heat had issues, of many other things. And after moving in, the arguments only continued until last night, Leslie overheard and saw her parents having the worst fight yet. Marrying you was the biggest mistake of my life. Yeah, and you did me such a favor. I didn't force you to marry me. You didn't force me, you fooled me into it. You said we would have a happy life. Everything isn't in my power. Because you're good for nothing. Carla, shut that mouth right now or you'll regret it. What are you going to do? Hit me? You're going to hit me? It all started around 9 last night. Leslie lay in bed, listening to her parents argue, anxious when she started to hear loud noises from their room. But then, everything suddenly fell silent. She closed her eyes, trying to calm down, and soon went to sleep. But it was sometime around 2 a.m. that she woke up hearing her floorboards creak. She shifted in bed, seeing her mom standing by her door, slowly walk in and sit down beside her. In the darkness, Leslie snuggled in her blankets as she felt her mom's cool hands stroke her hair. The last thing she whispered to her, "I'll always be by your side." Leslie sat up confused and worried. "Mom?" But there was no one in the room. She was all alone. Leslie feared the worst, and now she knew perhaps her mom was no longer with them. Perhaps it was her spirit who had come to visit her. That morning, Leslie skipped her breakfast and spent much of the day in her room, pondering about what happened the night before. Late in the afternoon, she stepped out into the quiet, gloomy house, passing by the living room to see her father drinking. Lately, he had been drinking a lot, and sometimes it felt he wasn't even in his senses. With her mom now gone, the house felt so empty and so messed up. Leslie hadn't eaten properly in the last 2 days. She kept to herself in her room. Her dad left in the morning and returned late at night. They rarely spoke. Not that Leslie had any wish to speak with him after what he did. She went to the kitchen and made herself a sandwich, with the last of the leftovers, barely gulping it down and returning to her room. Listening to the heavy gusts of wind blowing outside, Leslie soon went to sleep. It was around 1 a.m. when she woke up. She sat up a bit startled to see someone sitting by the edge of her bed. "Mom, you came? I miss you. Without you, my life has become a mess." Hearing her mother's soft voice, Leslie became teary. "Things are going to be different now. You have to be strong, Leslie." Before Leslie could ask her mother anything more, suddenly her door opened and her dad looked at her. "Who are you talking with?" he said, turning on the light. Leslie peered a glance around the room. Her mom left. "It's no one." Leslie scowled before she laid back down, waiting for her dad to leave. And as soon as he did, she got back up. "Mom, can you hear me? Mom, please, speak to me." But the room was silent. That was the last time Leslie had spoken to her. But she knew and she felt her mom was still around her. She was watching over her. Sometimes Leslie felt like she was standing right beside her. And sometimes she could hear her humming like she used to. And now and then, Leslie even caught a glimpse of her, But despite the solace she received from her mom, she couldn't help but feel hatred towards her dad for the despicable thing he had done. She didn't want to stay with him, but now in this lockdown, Leslie couldn't even go to school to get away. After a long day, all alone in the house, her dad showed up sometime around 10 p.m. Leslie ignored him and got up to go to her room. When her dad called her, "Did you have dinner? Did you bring any groceries? Don't behave like your mother. Or else what? You're going to hit me like you used to hit mom?" Leslie shouted before she stormed off to her room. Scott looked at his daughter shocked. He wasn't going to tolerate this behavior. But just as he was to follow her to her room, he felt an odd, cool breeze around him. And all of a sudden, one of the photo frames on the shelves fell to the floor and shattered. Scott turned to check the windows. They were all closed. How did it fall? And now on the floor lay a family picture of them. Leslie knew it wasn't just a coincidence. It was her mom's presence. The following day, Leslie noticed her dad cleaning up the house, being nice to her, trying to speak to her, but it was nothing more than an act to cover up his secret. And that night, surprisingly, her dad returned home earlier than usual. "Leslie, come, let's have dinner together. I got you BI burgers and fries, and I brought eggs and bread for breakfast tomorrow." "I'm not hungry." "Have you eaten anything all day? Why are you behaving like this?" Leslie shrugged as she stared at her dad. "I can behave however I want, just leave me alone, go eat by yourself." Scott looked at his daughter shocked. "You ungrateful. I'm exhausting myself day and night. I'm doing everything I can, but you and your mother, you guys will never be satisfied with anything." "I said just leave me alone." As soon as the words slipped Leslie's mouth, her dad became furious and was about to hit her. Leslie closed her eyes when suddenly the windows in her room burst open in the wind. And at once the electricity began to malfunction. Scott froze, staring at the light bulb flicker ominously as the window banged against the wall in the winds. What is going on? But it was as soon as Scott dropped his hand and rushed to close the window, everything suddenly calmed down again. Leslie stood there firmly looking at her dad in disgust. "Don't you know what is going on? We have to move out of this house. Something's not right." "Why? Why do we have to move out? Because you're afraid of her? Because she's trying to protect me?" "Afraid of who? Who's trying to protect you? What are you talking about?" "Don't act innocent, Dad, like you don't know anything. You're responsible for this. It's you." Leslie stared at her father fall silent before he left the room without another word. What more could he say? He knew it was his fault. That night, her father didn't come out of his room, and Leslie too decided to go to bed. She turned off all the lights in her room and sat down, waiting and hoping she could speak to her mother. "Mom, even after your death, you're still protecting me," she said in the silent room. Looking around, Leslie suddenly noticed her mom standing to the corner of the room. "Leslie, don't let your father do what he did to me. The authorities aren't going to believe you. Your father will take your life, and no one will know. Don't wait until it's too late." Tears fell down Leslie's face as her mom vanished again. She lay in bed thinking about everything. These past days had been so painful. Was she not going to avenge her mother's death? Was she waiting for when her father would do the same to her? Her mother was right. She had to get rid of him. So the next day, after her father left, Leslie went into her dad's room and carefully took out his gun from his safe. She anxiously waited for him to return, watching him as he sat in the living room, drinking, waiting for him to go to bed. And around midnight, she loaded the gun and slowly left her room and walked down the hall to his. Without a noise, she opened his door, just enough to see him. Her father was sleeping sound. Leslie's hands trembled as she held the gun at him, closing her eyes as she put her finger on the trigger. "This is for you, Mom." But as the tears rolled down her cheeks, and with all her strength as she was about to press the trigger, she froze, hearing the doorbell. Leslie put down the gun and stepped aside as her father got up and turned on the lamp. Scott came out in a hurry, confused as to who it was at this time. "Leslie, what are you doing here?" Gripping onto the gun behind her, Leslie said, "Someone rang the bell. Go to your room." From the hallway, Leslie watched her father as he looked through the peephole and suddenly hurried to unlock the door. A heavy gust of wind blew in as the snow poured heavily outside. And there on the porch stood none other than Clara. Wiping away her tears, Clara looked at her husband. It had been almost a week she had been away from him. That night, when she and Scott had a fight and things were going out of control, she had called her brother and left the house without anything. But she soon realized her mistake. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I was being so stubborn. I was unwilling to understand. I knew our situation, but because of the difficulty, I blamed everything on you, when it wasn't your fault." Scott sighed as he ushered his wife in. "Forget everything. Come on, it's snowing so heavily out tonight." Seeing her mom and dad get back together, Leslie stood there in shock as her hands trembled, feeling the cold gun against her skin. If her mom was alive, then who had she been seeing? Who was the woman trying to kill her family?
Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting. Here are your tickets to Belize. You'll be there for 4 nights. Speak to the local businesses, inspect the area, and send me updates. If we can pull this project off, we'll be making millions. Alright, I'll contact you when I reach there. Good luck. Calvin Ross was a marketing specialist. He worked for Irvine Laron, one of the biggest fashion stores and brand names across the US. The owner, Irvine Laron, his boss, had been doing business with small entrepreneurs in Belize. But ever since tourism had peaked significantly in the small Caribbean country, he had been considering opening another outlet of the store there. So he assigned Calvin with the task of finding the perfect location in Belize. Calvin was looking forward to this trip. It was almost like a paid vacation for him. He boarded his flight the next morning, and after a small 5-hour flight from Florida, he reached Belize sometime around 3 p.m. Picking up a few brochures and pamphlets, he walked out of the airport and headed out to search for a reasonable place to stay. Belize was known for couples coming to honeymoon, destination weddings, vacation getaways, but all Calvin really needed was a single room for a few nights, preferably somewhere quiet. Traveling about half an hour from the shore, Calvin booked into a small hotel. The room he chose had a semi-ocean view, but there were no windows. Instead, the view was from the balcony. The balcony, however, was located to the front of the hotel. But since there were next to no stores or houses in the surrounding area, it was peaceful and quiet. There weren't many facilities available at the hotel either. So after dropping off his luggage, Calvin went out to have dinner a little early at 5 p.m. This neighborhood was secluded. The marketplace was a 20-minute walk to the right, and the beach shore was a 10-minute walk to the left. There were only a handful of stores in the area, and Calvin wasn't really sure what or where he was going to eat. He set off walking until he started to see some of the locals and a few stores. Though none were places to eat, rather they were all stalls of fruits and vegetables. Was he going to have to cook back at the hotel now, or spend a night on some exotic fruits? Luckily, Calvin spotted a small open diner, or more like a hut, and sat down checking out the menu. Rice, everything is with rice. As he flipped the pages, rice and beans seemed like a staple in Belizean food, but it wasn't a staple in Calvin's diet. "Are you ready to order?" asked the waitress. Hello. I'm not too familiar with the cuisine here. Is there anything you would recommend?" "Oh, sure. How about this curry chicken? It's the best dish on the menu." "Alright, then I guess I'll go with that." It was within a while that the waitress brought out a delicious tray of food for Calvin. However, as soon as Calvin saw the red-hot stewed chicken curry, the rice and beans and potato salad on the side, Calvin knew this was going to be one tough meal for him. And it was. Calvin felt like his mouth was on fire. He began to sweat and had finished almost half of the jug of water. By the time the waitress came around and stared at him nervously, she brought a glass in her hands and gave it to him. "This is our special fruit smoothie. You're lucky it's the season for custard apples. You can't enjoy this fruit all the time. It's sweet," she said with a chuckle. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, Calvin smiled, gulping the smoothie down. "Thank you." "No problem." Calvin wasn't able to finish his food. He gave in to the heat of the habaneros, stuck to the potato salad and his custard apple smoothie, and hurried to leave, feeling just a little embarrassed. "Come back again." Calvin smiled at the young woman as he walked out the diner and towards the hotel. It was almost sunset now and people were starting to pack up. Calvin too decided to call it a day when he reached the hotel. He got into bed and began checking his emails and catching up on some work. It was around 10, however, that Calvin couldn't fall asleep. He was hungry. So he went out again to see if he could manage some snacks. There was a sweet breeze in the air. The moon was out. Calvin enjoyed walking down these mud roads. It was quite dark, but accessible, a lone street lamp far off from one another. Calvin began walking down towards the market. He did see a few small stalls on the way, and he had no problem going for some fruit this time. Unfortunately, when he reached the marketplace, he found everything closed. Not wanting to exhaust himself even more, he turned to go back, pretty disappointed. But moments into reaching the narrow road again, Calvin started to feel a little uneasy. He stopped, listening closely to the gentle motion of the leaves rustling in the trees above him. But there was something that made him feel like someone was watching him. When the feeling lingered, Calvin began to suppose he was being followed. He turned on his small pocket flashlight and turned around. But there was no one there. He quickened his pace and soon reached near the hotel, when he suddenly stopped, seeing something in the distance. To the opposite side, he noticed 2 stray dogs standing still, staring at him. Calvin too stood still, not wanting to provoke them. Was it those dogs following me this whole time? But when Calvin took a few steps forward, the dogs suddenly looked like they got frightened and ran off the other way. And honestly, Calvin too was relieved they did. After a long, tiring night, the next morning, Calvin managed to find a cafe in the busy part of town where he bought some sweet coconut cookies and a steaming cup of coffee to start his day. He then inspected the area, met a few local businessmen and some clients, and so far, things were looking positive for the project. Later that day, he headed to the shore to enjoy the blue waves. As he was walking there, he stopped, quite intrigued, seeing a large tree. It had twisted roots and branches, and a strange fruit hanging from it. Must be native to Belize. As the afternoon came to pass, this time Calvin was sure to take preparations for the long night ahead. On his way back, he stepped into a small bakery about 20 minutes away from the hotel and stood there, trying to read the Crayola labels on the price board. Are you here to order or to pick up? If you're here to order cake, it will take 3 days for the delivery, a young woman said from behind the counter. She was wearing a sundress, an apron stained with flour, her hair a little messed up, tied back into a bun, not too much to show off, but there was something about her smile, her eyes that caught Calvin's attention. She was beautiful. "Excuse me, can I help you?" she said, wiping her hands on a towel and waving at him. Calvin awkwardly asked, "Would you happen to have anything to eat as a midnight snack, like cookies?" The young woman furrowed her brows and looked at him. She suddenly chuckled and said, "You're not from here, and you're not used to the food either, are you?" "Yeah, I'm from America. Calvin Ross. I was staying at the hotel about 15 minutes away from here. I was searching for a restaurant, but there aren't many around here, and last time I went, let's just say it wasn't a good experience." "Well, if you can wait, I can bake some dry cake for you." "I would love that." "I'm Felicity. Take a seat." "Is it going to take a while?" Felicity stirred up the cake mixture in a bowl. "Yes, it is going to take a while. As you can see, I work here alone. This is my bakery." "It must be difficult running a bakery all by yourself." "Well, there aren't many people in this neighborhood, so I don't get a lot of orders. But then, I'm the only baker in this neighborhood, so business is alright. How about you? Are you here on vacation?" "No, I'm actually on a business trip. The company I work for used to supply products to small businesses in this area. But since tourism has really spiked here, we're thinking of opening one of our stores, and I'm here to inspect the location." Felicity placed the cake into the oven and patted the flowers off her hands as she returned to the counter. "But if you open such a large business here, what will happen to the small businesses? They'll all have to shut down." "Yes, but this will help develop the small town. There will be more job opportunities at the store. The people will be able to work there." Felicity shook her head. They were doing well on their own. They were independent business owners, but now they're going to be employees. Calvin was quite impressed, smart and beautiful. "So, how long are you staying here?" "Just 2 more days. Still have a few more locations to check. By the way, are there a lot of dogs in this area?" "Dogs?" "Yes, I was walking out the other night and I saw a couple of stray dogs following me." "Oh, yeah, these dogs do that. They don't like tourists." "What?" "Just joking. They're harmless animals." With the sound of the oven, Felicity took out the dry cakes and packed them into a box. Calvin took out his wallet and was about to pay when Felicity smiled. "That's all right. It's a gift. Do you think I make dry cakes for my customers?" she said, raising her brow. Calvin chuckled. "Thank you. And in that case, if you wouldn't mind, I'll see you again tomorrow. When do you open?" "See you at 9 a.m. That night, at around 11, after Calvin wrapped up on his work, he sat out on the balcony enjoying his snack while he cooled off, carried away in his thoughts. He was a bit startled seeing one of those stray dogs sitting just a distance away on the ground below, staring at him eat. Calvin got up and threw the dog a piece of the cake. The dog immediately ran towards it. Within a while, a few more dogs rushed down the road and joined in, fighting over the small piece of cake. So Calvin dropped a few more down to the dogs. But as they desperately ate the cakes, they all turned around, spotting someone walk down the road. And just as the figure reached near, the dogs suddenly ran off again. Calvin looked closely to see a young woman. He recognized her. It was Felicity. She stopped in front of the balcony and looked back at him. "Felicity, what are you doing here? Hold on, I'll be right down." Calvin hurried out the hotel front door. "What are you doing here so late?" "I take a walk by the beach every night. There's a tree there where I usually sit. The weather is nice out." "Oh, that large tree? I saw it too." "It's a seba tree." The moon was bright in the sky tonight, and Felicity was looking mesmerizingly beautiful. Calvin couldn't help but stare into her eyes. "Come with me." "All right," but just as Calvin took a few steps toward her, all of a sudden, the stray dogs ran down the road and jumped in front of him. They all began barking aggressively at Felicity. "Careful, Felicity," Calvin shouted. But he was bewildered seeing Felicity quietly standing there as the dogs continued to bark. A heavy gust of wind blew down the road. When Calvin suddenly noticed her dress begin to sway, her feet suddenly lifted off the ground and hovered aloft. Horrified, Calvin stumbled back, seeing Felicity suddenly vanish into thin air. Frightened to his core, he ran back inside. His heart raced as he lay in bed. What did he just see? Was that Felicity or something else? That night, Calvin got a sudden high fever. He was feeling so dreadful, so sick. His condition only worsened, and the next morning the hotel staff took Calvin to the nearby hospital. After being medicated, Calvin was finally able to get some relief. When he woke up later that afternoon, one of the nurses came in. "Good afternoon, Mr. Ross. There has been a visitor waiting for you." "A visitor? Who?" "I'll send her in." In just a few moments, the nurse escorted Felicity inside. When suddenly, Calvin felt pale. "I was wondering why you didn't come this morning. I called the motel and I heard you were at the hospital," Felicity said as she sat down beside him. "How did this happen?" But Calvin just stared at her. "I saw you last night. At around 11, I was feeding these dogs when you walked down that road. You were going to the beach." "At 11? What are you talking about? I was at home." "We spoke, Felicity. You asked me to come with you to that seba tree, but when I went to join you, something happened." Calvin told Felicity everything that had happened the previous night. When suddenly, the look on Felicity's face changed. "It wasn't me. You saw something else. We call her Ishtabe. She's a dark spirit who appears in different forms of people close to you. This way, she lures men to go with her. She takes them to the seba tree, where she tears out the hearts of her victims after she fulfills her desires. When you left the hotel the other night, she must have spotted you. No one can escape her once she targets them. They're bound by her spell to follow her. But that night, you were lucky enough to reach the hotel and fell asleep. And last night, the only reason you survived was because of those dogs. They're usually afraid of the Ishtabe, but when you gave them food, they became loyal to you and returned to save you from that dark spirit. If it weren't for them, you wouldn't have survived." Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.
Laura, come to your senses. Listen to me. It's Harry. You still want her? After she cheated on you with your friend? No, you're not my Laura. You're not my Laura. This wasn't the woman he married. Something wicked was within her. This all began when Harry and Laura had traveled to Green Bay from Cedarville a few months ago after their marriage. They left their small town hoping to start a new life in the city. They rented a small house, which wasn't in the best of conditions, but the couple managed Laura got a job at a flower shop, and Harry landed an opportunity at a news agency. They didn't make much and were rather struggling, but life was beautiful together. Laura found her happiness in the simplest of things. She had a hobby of collecting small knickknacks from thrift shops and garage sales, and she decorated their home with it. It was one day that she made quite a strange and surprising find. Laura picked up a painting of a woman that looked just like her. How can this be? Laura knew she had to take it home. How much is this? It's $14.99. Wow, this looks just like you. The resemblance of the painting was surely uncanny, and Laura couldn't wait to show Harry. Wow, you look enticing in this. Who made this portrait? First of all, it's not me, mister. Are you serious? This isn't you? Then whose portrait is it? I found it at that thrift shop by the bakery we always go to. Harry turned the painting around, inspecting it. There was a date on the back. It's from 1950, almost 60 years ago. You think it could be one of your ancestors? Do you know any wealthy family members? Maybe you could claim inheritance. Laura hung the painting by the bookcase in the living room. Yeah, right. At the time, she and Harry hadn't thought much of it, assuming it was just a mere coincidence. But it was since then that Harry started to notice strange things in Laura. He would often see her staring at the portrait, sometimes even touching it. What are you doing? What? Nothing. I came here to get a book. You've been standing here for almost 20 minutes now. Really? I thought I just got here. Whenever Harry asked her about it, it almost seemed as if she wasn't aware of the matter. And then came the sleepless nights, when Laura would walk around the house and stop by the portrait. Harry felt a little strange watching her like that, but he never said anything to her. But things only became stranger from there. It was one night, Harry returned home from work to find Laura had changed her looks. She looked so different. What did you do to your hair, and where's your glasses? I haven't been needing them lately. Harry was surprised by how quiet Laura was. Usually she would be so excited and happy to show him the new things she tried out. But she didn't say a thing and sat down by the window, just staring out into the night sky. Harry passed a glance at the painting. Laura looked completely like the woman in the portrait. Even their makeup was alike now. Harry surely found it bizarre, but he still didn't tell her anything. At least, not until the night he woke up and found their bed empty beside him. He sat up startled when he noticed Laura sitting by their dresser. She was getting ready in the dark, putting makeup on herself. Laura, what are you doing? Are you going somewhere? What time is it? Laura was silent. Harry got out of bed and walked towards her. Laura. But she continued coloring her lips with her finger, as if she hadn't heard him. Harry turned her around. What are you... He felt pale by what he saw. Laura's wrists were slit. Her dress was soaked in blood. The small palette from which she had been dipping her finger and applying to her lips was her own blood. What have you done? Have you gone crazy? But without a word, Laura fell unconscious. Harry immediately rushed to the hospital. Wondering if he had been asleep, perhaps he would have woken up to something horrible. Doctor, is she okay? She's in a critical condition, had severe blood loss. She'll have to be monitored for a few days before she can be released. How are you feeling? Better. What happened to you last night, Laura? How? Why did you hurt yourself like this? Harry, I don't remember anything. Surprisingly, Laura had no recollection of what happened, so Harry didn't bother her about it anymore. The following night, he left Laura at the hospital and returned home to get some rest. But he couldn't fall asleep. He kept wondering what happened to Laura. Why was she behaving so strange, and why would she hurt herself like this? And the only thing he could think of was that painting. It was almost like she had become obsessed with it. Went to the living room and took it down to inspect it. But there was no signature or name on it. So the next day, Harry went to the thrift shop where Laura said she had bought the painting. Excuse me, my wife recently bought a painting from here. Sorry, no refunds. I just wanted to know if you could tell me where you got it. Which painting? Harry showed the man a picture of Laura. It's a Gothic painting of a woman that looked just like her. Oh, yes, I remember. I got it at a cheap price a long time ago. There used to be a painter around here. After he passed away, his house went into foreclosure and the bank sold off all his things at an auction. I bought some furniture and that painting. They were all sold years ago. This was the only item remaining. Would you be able to tell me the address of the painter's house? Sure. After taking the address of the painter, Harry traveled to the house to find it was practically abandoned. The house had never been sold and now lay covered in weeds and ruins. Spotting a neighbor across the street, Harry thought perhaps he could get some information. Excuse me, would you happen to know of a painter who lived in that house across the street? Yes, I remember. Back in the old days. I was only 16 when he was alive. But why do you ask? I recently purchased one of his paintings. His name was Leon Valliere. He was a very strange man. He didn't have anybody, but he was very famous at the time. Near the end of his life, however, he suddenly began to keep to himself. People rarely ever saw him. One day, he was found lifeless in his house a few days after he passed away. Harry found the matter quite chilling and tried to get more information on this painter, but didn't have much luck. On the other hand, Laura's health had gotten much better and she was to return home again. But before bringing her back, Harry decided to move the painting away. However, the first thing Laura asked when she returned, "Harry, where's my painting?" "It's still here, don't worry about it. But up until we understand what happened to you that night, I'm going to keep it hidden." I really don't know what happened, Harry. I can't remember anything. Harry took a few days off from work to care for her, and Laura's health improved. She was behaving more like herself. I wish I could be with you, but I have to get back to work. I'll be fine, Harry. Call me if you need anything, okay? Harry left for work that morning. And later in the day, during his break, he called up Laura to check up on her. But she didn't answer. When Laura didn't pick up any of his calls, Harry started to get a little worried. So he called Richard, their neighbor and a good friend of his. "Harry, what's up, man?" "Richard, I've been trying to call Laura, but she's not picking up, and you know how she's been unwell. Would you please check up on her?" "Yeah, sure, I'll call you back." "Laura, are you home?" "Hello, Richard. Come on in." When an hour had gone by and Harry couldn't reach Richard anymore either, he got a bad feeling something wasn't right. He immediately took leave and headed home. It was raining heavily outside, and reaching there, he opened the door to find the electricity was out. "Laura, where are you?" As soon as Harry turned to the living room, he froze upon what he saw. Richard was unconscious on the ground. Harry checked his pulse. He was still breathing. But that's when Harry noticed the painting up on the wall again. And suddenly, he heard a noise behind him. It was Laura. "Laura, what happened to Richard?" "I was just having a little fun with him." Harry was shocked to hear Laura's laughter. "Laura, what's gotten into you? Come to your senses. Listen to me. It's Harry." "You still want her? After she cheated on you with your friend?" "No, you're not my Laura. You're not my Laura." Seeing Laura in that condition, Harry knew he had to do something. Harry ran to the painting and pulled it down. This painting is the root of all evil. I'm going to destroy you." Harry took out his lighter from his pocket, but just when he lit the flame, Laura yelled out, "Non, non, elle est ma joie."
Léon Vallière was an exceptional painter who moved to America from France in the 1940s.
He used to make the most exotic portraits of beautiful women. And wishing to make his best piece of art, Léon put up an advertisement for a model. Many women came for the audition, but Léon rejected everyone. Everyone until Claudia walked in. What a beauty. Leon immediately hired her. She was absolutely mesmerizing. And from then on, Claudia started to come to his house, where she modeled for him, and he painted her. "You are just amazing, Claudia. You are my joy." Over these sessions, Leon grew more and more enchanted by her beauty. It was as if he were spellbound by her. And his passion for Claudia soon turned into an obsession. But in all this, one day, Leon discovered Claudia was seeing someone. She loved someone. And he couldn't take it. He felt betrayed of his love. And that evening, when Claudia came for their session, he confronted her. "Good evening, Mr. Valliere. Are we ready for work? Where were you? Who were you with?" "I was with Victor." "So you admit you have been unfaithful to me?" "Excuse me? How could you do this to me? How could you betray me?" "Mr. Valliere, what are you talking about? You think all this was for nothing?" "Mr. Valliere, what are you doing?" In his rage, Leon lit fire and began burning all of Claudia's paintings. "Mr. Valliere, please stop your paintings!" "And you are only mine. Only mine." That night, in his obsession and madness, Leon took Claudia's life. But when he came to his senses, he was distraught in guilt, having lost his love forever. What have I done? Staring upon Claudia's lifeless pale body, her colorless face, this time, Leon Valliere began his last masterpiece. He took his own life, painting the last portrait of Claudia with his own blood. Non, elle est ma joie. Claudia, Claudia. As Laura begged to him, Harry lit the portrait on fire. Your Claudia is no more. Laura screamed in anguish as the painting became engulfed in flames, before she fell to her knees and fainted. "Laura! Laura!" Laura opened her eyes, looking at Harry. "Harry? What happened? What's going on?" "You don't remember. Richard, he's still breathing. We have to take him to the hospital."
Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.
It was an hour to midnight on New Year's Eve. Bella slowly climbed out her window and crept down the front yard, meeting up with her friend Candace. "A little late?" "Yeah, I was getting a little nervous sneaking out of the house." "Let's go, they're waiting for us. I heard they got really awesome fireworks. Year 2000 is gonna be great." Bella and Candace were headed to Sawdust Point by the lakeside, where they were supposed to meet up with a few of their guy friends to celebrate the 2000 New Year. The weather was cold and windy, and after a long ride across town, the friends finally reached there, but they couldn't spot anyone else. Where are they? Why aren't they here yet? We're at the right location, right? Yeah, Felix said he would be here. The weather was significantly colder and windier by the shore. The lake was partially frozen. Candace and Bella stood waiting, hoping their friends would show up soon. They thought they were alone. But they were unaware. Some people had gotten their eyes on them. Hey, beautiful. What are you doing here so late? Need some company? Look, you're shaking. I can keep you warm tonight. Bella sternly looked at them. Listen, don't think we're alone. The guys will be here anytime. Oh, really? And what are they going to do? Bella was rude and harsh, but seeing a few of them, Candace was scared. Bella, let's go. We don't want trouble. What? You want to run from these bums? Who are you calling bum? As the guys started to surround them, Candace yelled, "Run!" She ran straight to the scooter, but when she turned for Bella, she was panicked to see the guys had surrounded her. Bella just barely managed to escape and ran the other way as they chased her. As Bella neared the rocky edge of the bank, she stopped, staring at the guys. What was she going to do? You aren't going anywhere. The next morning, when Bella's mother, Lauren, passed by her room, she stopped noticing it was empty. Bella? Where did she go so early in the morning? It was the holidays. Bella didn't have school, and she wouldn't be going out so early anywhere else either. Lauren went around the house. She called up her friends, but they didn't know where Bella was. Albert, do you know where Bella is? What do you mean, she's not home? She's not in her room. I called her friends, she's not with them either. Then where is she? After calling a few other friends and relatives to know news of Bella, Albert walked around the neighborhood, but he couldn't find her anywhere. And when hours went by like this, the parents were awfully worried. Bella had never done anything like this before. Panicked, the parents headed to the police. Officer, the last time I saw my daughter was last night. She went to bed and this morning she wasn't in her room. A lot of people had gone out to celebrate and light fireworks for the 2000 New Year. Are you sure she didn't sneak out last night? Lauren and Albert looked at each other, unsure. Would their daughter sneak out? Does she have any close friends or a boyfriend? She doesn't have a boyfriend, but Candace is her best friend. We spoke to her, but she doesn't know anything. Noting down all the information of Bella's disappearance, the police then went to Candace's house to have a word with her. When was the last time you met or spoke to Bella? A day ago. We spoke on the phone. Did you have any plans on the New Year's? A few friends of ours had gotten some fireworks and we all wanted to go to Sawdust Point to celebrate, but I couldn't build up the courage to leave the house. After speaking to Candace, the police then started to investigate what actually happened. Tom, Brad, and Joe, 3 teens. They were arrested last night when officers found illegal fireworks on them. They went to the same school, headed to the same area. But they never made it. It's possible Bella Anderson went to Sawdust Point alone. We have to search the area. The police immediately sent out search teams around Sawdust Point. And sure enough, they discovered a clue. She must have been here. But even after hours of searching, they were unable to find her body. Lauren tirelessly called every person she knew asking about her daughter. Albert drove around town hoping to spot a glimpse of her. But days were going by, and there was no news of Bella, and the parents were becoming desperate. In all this, it was one day, while Lauren was speaking to her neighbor, Sharon, she gave her some advice. You won't find her going from door to door like this, Lauren. What am I supposed to do? How else will I find her? I know someone. Her name is Shoshana. She can help. Desperate as she was, Lauren agreed to visit this woman, who was known to have helped people in difficult situations before. That evening, convincing Albert, the couple went with Sharon to meet Shoshana. Upon knocking on her door, a woman dressed in black stepped out, strangely looking at them. Sharon, how are you? I'm well, Shoshana. This is Lauren and Albert. Hello. Hello. They're very good people, but their daughter is missing. Please help them. She is a very innocent child. Listening to Sharon, Shoshana looked at Lauren and Albert for a while, before she gave way. Come in. The parents followed her into a dark room. Inside was nothing but a round table, and on it a small bowl of oil. They sat down as Shoshana lit a few candles and placed them around the table. Do you have something that belongs to her? Lauren took out a napkin. Inside were a few strands of hair she had brought from Bella's comb. This is her hair. Shoshana picked up the strands and dropped it into the oil. She then picked up a needle and stirred the oil before she put out her palm. 2 drops of blood mingled together. Lauren and Albert passed each other a glance before they both gave their hands. Shoshana pricked them and mixed 2 drops of their blood into the bowl, and lastly, a drop of her own. Lauren and Albert watched as she began chanting something. And all of a sudden, all the candles went out, and in an instant, the bowl caught on fire. Your daughter will be back. That night, Lauren and Albert returned home. They were stressed, they were anxious, they couldn't understand what they experienced at Shoshana's. Do you think it worked? Do you think we'll find Bella? I don't know, Lauren. It was sometime late into the night. The parents heard a knock on their door. But as they opened the door, they froze, seeing Bella. Her hair disheveled, her clothes ruined, her face pale. Bella, my dear, where were you? What happened to you? But Bella was silent. The parents took her in and sat her down. Bella didn't say a word. She didn't even look at them. Listen, don't ask her anything. Our daughter is back. What more do you want? Are you suspecting something bad happened with her? Whatever happened, happened. It wasn't her fault. She's traumatized. Don't ask her anything now. If we treat her like this, she won't be able to recover. After she's better, we'll ask her what happened. All right. Lauren and Albert didn't tell anyone about what happened with Bella, nor did they ask her anything. That night, Bella took a shower and returned to the table where the family sat down to eat. How are you feeling, dear? But Bella was quiet. She simply stared at her bowl. I made your favorite soup. Aren't you hungry? I'm not hungry, she said before she got up and went back to her room. School had opened up again, but for the next few days Bella didn't go, and her parents didn't force her either, trying to be easy on her. But Bella wasn't the same anymore. She was nothing like what she used to be. Entire days would go by, and she would just sit in her room. She didn't watch movies or listen to music or read books like she used to. She would rarely say a word and rarely even ate a morsel of food, and this was how the days were going by. One evening, while Bella was in the shower, Lauren had gone to clean up her room. There was a horrible stench inside. What is that? Following the stench, Lauren walked to her closet and opened it up. She stumbled back upon what she found. How did this? There on the ground were the remains of a cat, squirrels, birds, portions of their bodies torn off as if someone had bit them. Lauren immediately told her husband about everything. Albert, do you think she was eating it? What? What nonsense. Then how did it get in her closet? Whatever it is, just clean it out. Albert didn't pay the matter much heed, but Lauren couldn't forget what she saw. She decided to call up Candace. Perhaps Bella would open up if she had some company. Yes, Mrs. Anderson? Would you please come over to the house? Why, Mrs. Anderson? Is everything okay? Bella, she's back. What? Bella is back? Yes, but she hasn't been well. She's traumatized. I was hoping if you talked to her, she might feel better. So that evening, Candace made her way to the Andersons, where Lauren took her to see Bella. You girls talk. I'll be downstairs. When Mrs. Anderson had left, Candace looked at Bella. She didn't know where to start. Bella, thank you so much for not telling anyone anything. I really thought they killed you that night, and I was going to be next. If I knew you were alive, I would have never left without you. When Bella didn't say anything, Candace sat beside her. Bella, listen. Whatever happened has happened. You need to move on. We don't need to tell anyone about it. And no one will ever know. Hearing Candace shout, Lauren and Albert rushed upstairs. There on the ground, Bella was crouched over, blood on her hands, on her mouth. Candace was no more. What have you done? You don't know what she did. What are we going to do, Albert? We have to get rid of the body. If anyone finds out, Bella will be in trouble. We can't tell anyone she's back. That night, Albert took Candace's body and dropped it out into the lake across town. The very next day, Candace was reported missing, and the police had gotten involved. But Lauren and Albert kept quiet about Bella. The parents didn't allow anyone in the house. However, when days went by, they became concerned as to how long they would pull this off, how long they could hide Bella. And it was one night they got a visit from the police. It's the police. Stay calm. We have to handle this. Albert opened the door. There, outside, stood an officer. Bella. Mom? Dad? Mr. Anderson. We found her at a hospital across town. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry, Mom. That night, Candace and I went out to the lakeside. Our friends had gotten fireworks and we wanted to celebrate the New Year's, but when we got there, some goons started harassing us. They chased me and I suddenly fell and hit my head. When I woke up, I realized they dropped me off at a hospital. The staff couldn't identify them or me, and I was severely injured on my head. I wasn't in the condition to tell them anything. Albert and Lauren didn't know what to say but to thank the officer. Thank you so much. No problem. Take care. They brought inside their daughter, and Bella let out a breath of relief. I really need to wash up. I'm gonna go to my room. No, you can't go upstairs, Albert quickly said. Confused, Bella asked, Why? Albert, if Bella is here, who is upstairs?
Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.
What is happening with these animals? This is the 6th carcass. The animal passed away from lack of blood. Its body is completely drained, just like the others. Strange. After Lucas's grandfather passed away, the Sanders family, his father, mother, and 3 sisters, have been running the family maple orchard and farm in Sitka, Alaska. In recent time, however, Lucas's father had been struggling to maintain the business, and after a major loss, decided to make up the cost by renting out the west half of the family ranch to some city folks, the Riddles. So what brings you here to Sitka? My wife has actually been suffering from sickness for quite some time now. We were hoping some fresh air, change of environment would help her heal. Well, this is a peaceful small town. The weather is mild and the coast is nearby. It's a wonderful place to recover. Yes, we'll take the ranch. But I was just wondering, will it be a problem if we bring in animals? Perhaps keep them out on the property? No, they'll be absolutely fine. Feel free to use the backyard. Lucas wasn't too happy about having to shift into a dingy room to the east side of the ranch, nor having to share the house and property with another family. But he really didn't have a choice, especially being the middle child. Early the next Saturday morning, The weather was gloomy out and the winds were quite heavy. Around 7 a.m., Lucas noticed a car drive onto the property. It was Mr. Riddle and his family. No moving truck? Lucas was a bit intrigued seeing the man taking out the furniture on his own before he helped out his wife. Despite the gloomy weather, the woman had a scarf wrapped around her head and sunglasses. She looked a sickly pale and was very slim. What happened to her? Lucas watched from the corner of the porch as the couple went inside, when he suddenly noticed another person, Mr. Riddle's daughter. Wow, she's beautiful. Seeing her carrying the boxes, Lucas thought he'd help out and hurried across the lawn. Hey, I'm Lucas. Need some help? Oh no, it's alright. Lucas insisted and grabbed onto the box, only to realize how heavy it was. How was she carrying this? Shoot, it's slipping out of my hands. No, Lucas, don't embarrass yourself now. Are you sure you can carry that? Yeah, it's light as a feather. That's the last one. Thanks for helping. It's Ileana, by the way. Ileana, I thought you guys had pets. Your dad was asking about keeping animals? Oh no, we don't have pets. It's probably because he has a hobby of hunting. Sometimes he captures game instead and brings it back home. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I should get going. I'll see you around. Lucas, can you help Mom throw out the trash? No way, what do I look like, a servant? Didn't he just literally carry all their furniture? Hormones. What? Lucas liked Ileana. She seemed sweet and she was definitely attractive. And lucky for him, he got another chance to meet her when his mother invited the Riddles over for dinner that week. The entire evening, Lucas had been watching Ileana and her parents. They were different, definitely not like the people around here. Perhaps this was how city folk were. So, how are you all liking Sitka? It's a beautiful place. I hope you'll enjoy the elk. It's from our farm. It's wonderful, Mr. Sanders. Despite the compliments, the family actually ate next to nothing, barely nibbling on their food. Most of the time it was only Mr. Riddle who spoke. His wife rarely said anything except for what she whispered to him. And Ileana too seemed strangely, nervously quiet. Why does she look so worried? As Mrs. Sanders sliced the meat and served everyone, suddenly, her hand slipped and she cut herself. It's bleeding. Jenna, get the first aid kit. All of a sudden, Mrs. Riddle pushed her chair out and stood up, staring at his mother's cut. Mr. Riddle quickly handed her some napkins before he sat his wife down. Ileana hurried to her mother as Mrs. Riddle started breathing heavily. Is everything all right? She's feeling unwell. She needs to rest. We should go. With that, the family got up in a hurry and went out the door. What a strange family. That night turned out rather disappointing. But for the next days, Lucas kept an eye out, looking for a chance to meet Ileana again. But for almost a week, he didn't see her at all. The curtains in the Riddles portion of the ranch remained drawn all the time. It was only late in the evenings that Lucas ever only saw Mr. and Mrs. Riddle leave the house. Where do they go every evening? And where is Ileana? Sometimes, the Riddles returned home empty-handed. And sometimes, they would bring back surprising catches like moose. How did he manage to tie that down? Is it going to roam in our backyard like that? But usually, by the next morning, the animals would simply disappear. Did they run off? Probably. By the next weekend, the weather had started to act up. There were heavy winds out, and sometime in the afternoon, the rain started to storm down. Lucas, the power went out. Can you check the main panel? Yeah, I'm going. The main electricity panel to the entire ranch was on the west side, meaning in the Riddles' apartment. Lucas didn't want to bump into Mr. and Mrs. Riddle. So he decided to wait it out, and in the evening, after seeing them leave, he finally went over. Hey, the weather has been really bad today. Our electricity went out. Yes, the electricity went out here too. I was actually here to check out the main panel. May I come in? After a bit of hesitation, Ileana opened the door. All right. Holding his small keychain flashlight, Lucas walked down the hall. Peering into the living room, he noticed the furniture the Riddles had laid out. Everything looked so antique, almost as if it was from the Victorian era. Rich people and their hobbies. Finding his way to the power room, Lucas managed to solve the issue, and at once the house lit up. Except, the lights in the Riddles' apartment was quite dimmed out. Did I mess something up? Why are the lights so low? No, it's fine. We kept it a little low for my mom. She has trouble sleeping. If you don't mind, what happened with her? She suffers from a rare anemic disorder. Oh, Lucas awkwardly tried to change the topic. So, I haven't seen you these past days. Well, my parents are really strict. I'm homeschooled, so they don't allow me out during school hours. In fact, my mom doesn't really like me having friends over. You should go before they return. Friend? She thinks I'm her friend? Nice. Alright, bye. In the rain, Lucas rushed back home to find his dad had returned early. He looked quite stressed. What's wrong, Bill? Something strange has been going on with the animals around here. Business has already been so bad, and now these animals are being found dead. Are they being hunted down? Surprisingly, no. Something is causing them to lack blood and they're dying out of disease. That's strange. As Lucas joined the others, his sisters suddenly hushed everyone as they turned on the news. Wildlife veterinarian Jacob Barnes goes missing in the midst of a research project by the coast. Police have discovered the doctor's boat and few possessions, however, all research work seems to have been stolen. Police are investigating the strange case, but have found no lead yet. Isn't that Mr. Barnes? He's missing? What? Jacob? We were working together. He told me he found out something about the animals. How could he go missing? Seems like someone's behind this. Lucas was quite intrigued by the strange news. The next day, he decided he'd do a little investigation by the coast himself. But while he was getting ready to leave, he realized he didn't have his keys. Where did I put them? Oh darn, I must have left it at the Riddles. Now what? Without much choice, Lucas went over to the west side and knocked on Ileana's window. It was almost 6 p.m. It wasn't too late, was it? But to his surprise, she didn't open. Lucas tried peering in through the windows, but the house seemed so quiet, like there was no one home. Curiously, Lucas went to the back and opened one of the broken windows. Sneakily stepping in, he found the house dark and quiet. I'll just take my keys and get out. Lucas slowly inched his way to the power room again, trying to pad his way around, searching the floor for his keys. But it was in all this. He suddenly heard the front door open. Their home? Panicking, Lucas looked around. He wouldn't make it to the window. But that's when he spotted the basement door. The ranch had a semi-basement. There were small windows right above ground level. Lucas quickly went in, planning to sneak out the windows and pretend as if he were never here. But the minute he climbed down the stairs, he was hit by a putrid odor. Lucas stared at the incinerator. It was turned on, piping hot. What are they using the incinerator for? As Lucas stepped closer, he froze as his vision cleared to the glow of the fire. As he stared at what was a carcass, many animal carcasses. Stumbling back, Lucas looked around, getting a bad feeling about the riddles. There was definitely something going on here. Shining his flashlight, Lucas's heart jumped as he realized there were 3 coffins laid to the other side. Coffins? Before he could think straight, he heard voices by the basement door and immediately rushed to hide behind some storage crates. Mr. Riddle and Ileana walked down, but Lucas heard another familiar voice. Please, let me go. Why are you doing this to me? Lucas stared through the crack, horrified when he recognized Mr. Barnes. Sweetheart, I finally brought it for you, Mr. Riddle said. One of the coffins suddenly opened, and Mrs. Riddle sat up. Her sickly pallor lightened as she stared at Mr. Barnes. I've been craving this for so long. No, please, let me go. Lucas froze, unable to move, unable to speak, as he stared at Mrs. Riddle devour the man right in front of his eyes. What are they? He couldn't understand what he was going to do, how he was going to get out of here. But it was just then he heard Mrs. Riddle's voice once more. Ileana, I told you not to bring over your friends. No. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting. Please, lend me a hand. Save me.
I can't hold on any longer. I'm sorry, I can't. No, don't leave me. Try to understand. I have a family. I'll pay you anything you ask for. Just please lend out your hand to me. Things hadn't always been like this. There was a time when I wouldn't pass away a single opportunity to help someone in need. But what came after that? No. How long could it have gone on like that? Karma. Karma doesn't exist. But what does exist is the opposite of karma. What exists are beings that ordinary men can't see. The ordinary man doesn't go through what I do either. Helping someone has become a curse for me. Many years ago, when I was only about 20, I noticed something strange had been going on. Something that couldn't have been done without some sort of intervention. It was the most painful year of my life, and all I had been asking myself was what was it that I had done that karma was stabbing me in the back like this? Repeatedly. I hadn't noticed it at first. I mean, who would imagine just because you saved a little girl from falling off 2 stories of stairs meant that you would have to take the pain onto yourself? It was horrible. I found myself tripping over a wet mat on the bathroom floor the next morning, breaking my leg and injuring my neck. Or the time when I called out that man when a car was headed straight at his bike. A week after, I had gone go-karting with a couple of friends and my cart had gone out of control and exploded into flames. I survived, but with broken bones and severe burns. Then there was the time when I went to visit my grandmother. She was cooking in the kitchen when she misplaced a hot pot of boiling soup on the edge of the table. If I hadn't been there, there would have been a disaster. When I got back home one evening, I opened my window, decided to catch a breeze while I finished some work. A crazy teen rode by on his bike and threw a steaming cup of hot coffee through the window. That burn was awful. I had a dark scar on half of my face for weeks. It was all very strange. I found myself visiting the hospital more than I'd ever imagined. I found myself having accidents that could have never happened just like that. But it was when I failed my exam that I became sure that it was no coincidence. For those who know me, they know I don't fool around when it comes to studies. It was the midsummer exam. We were all seated for the test to begin. I wasn't at all worried. I had been prepared for over a week before the exam. In the middle of the exam, the girl from behind poked my back. She wanted to copy off my paper. The mistake of my life. I helped her out. A week later, when the papers returned, I found her giggling and laughing. That was probably the first A she'd gotten in her entire life. And me? This is not like you, Mr. Brown. Is everything okay at home? This couldn't be. Nothing made sense. I was sick. I was sick of all the accidents occurring in my life. It was making me bitter. I decided I wasn't going to help anyone ever again. I began to keep to myself. It made me feel horrible. I wondered the day when I would need help and there would be no one there to stand by my side. And then there was the fact that people started hating me, cursing me with all sorts of curses. But things became even more strange. Life actually became better. No more accidents, no more injuries. Nothing was going wrong anymore. I was happy, but I realized it made me arrogant. It was making me into something that I was not. Life couldn't go on like that either. The next day, I walked out the door like every morning, headed for class. On the way, I saw a blind girl stoop down to the ground, trying to pick up some coins she had dropped. But she was searching on the wrong place, far from where her purse had actually fallen. "Let me help you." "No," she hissed at me. "It's a curse. Don't help me. I can do it myself." "Don't be silly, the coins are on this side." "Leave," she said in a low voice. "She will get you. You don't see what I do. You shouldn't get in the way of what is destined to happen. You will be cursed by the angel of destiny." Bewildered, I dropped her coins and backed off. Someone was having a bad day, I thought. until it all began again. The accidents, the injuries, the tragedies, which made me remember the blind girl. What had she said? Cursed by the angel of destiny? Could there have been such a thing? For weeks I searched all over, from every website I could open to every library I could check, until I fell upon a book that has changed my life ever since. I could see myself in what was described within. There are angels of all kinds, who curse the ones of mankind that interfere with their work. As for me, I've been cursed by the angel of destiny for having stopped what was meant to be. Since then, I've never helped anyone in fear of my own life, in fear that if I saved the life of another man, it would mean having to give up my own. Like I said, it's not karma, it's the opposite. Who would believe helping someone in need could actually kill you?